Hello. Welcome, my name's Popeye, and today we're playing some more Higurashi Chapter 6, Tsumihoroboshi. Glad to see that hat's already been banned. I also have to say, Samus, I do, on a very rare occasion, usually I find it a bit too uncomfortable. Sometimes I have, like, the foot up on my desk. Like, if you've ever seen that picture of, like, why does my back hurt, and the person's like this and their legs up next to them? Sometimes that's me. Although I'm trying not to do that. One, because it now puts me too far from my desk to like interact with my keyboard and mouse, and because my back already hurts. I don't want it to hurt. But yes, hello everyone. We are back with more Higurashi. Before we get into it, just some trigger warnings. This game's not for everyone. This game has some pretty mature themes, which include but are not limited to the following. Death, kidnapping, torture, blood, gore, rape, murder. I guess I now have to say infidelity. That's something that happened last stream. Yes, Al Gore is in this game. So yeah, if any of those things are not for you, or if you missed what I said, look down below. I have a list of trigger warnings down below. But yeah, if any of those are not for you, please by all means find some place that you would feel more comfortable tonight. But yeah, what happened last time? So we're starting back. This is the 6th game in the series. We're back in the core series. The last one we played was like a side arc. And this one follows Keiichi and Rena, and it, as we saw in the last one, kind of flips back and forth between them. We started off as Keiichi for the entire first chapter. The second chapter was split 50-50-ish, maybe a bit more Keiichi, and then the last one was I think entirely Rena, or almost entirely Rena. And what did we do? We started off with a water gun fight in which Keiichi and Rena tied for first place, and the losers had to go and wear ridiculous costumes at a cafe that was doing a special promotion the next day. However, we had agreed that we would finish our tie at a later point in time, because who likes a tie for winning, right? So it was decided that we would have an eating contest with the loser joining the people wearing costumes, and then a bunch of other people in the cafe, some of our classmates, the local doctor, and some dude who liked the restaurant decided to join in. We don't actually find out who wins. Think just based on the context, Keiichi ends up winning, but it's not really specified. And then we're walking home. We switch over to Rena, who tells us a lot about her past, and this is all brand new information. So first of all, she's only living with her father. Her mother, both her parents were fashion designers. They moved out to the city where there was better work for fashion designers. Her mother became really famous, kind of left her father behind, but he was fine supporting her. Until her mother was like, yeah, he's not good enough for me anymore, cheated on him, got pregnant, got a divorce, didn't tell him anything, just went through the lawyers, and then was making Rena choose who to live with. And Rena was just like, yeah, Mom, you're kind of a dick. I'm gonna go live with Dad, even though he doesn't have that much money. And then they moved back to Hinamizawa, which was their grandmother's house, I believe, but she had passed away and they had inherited it. And that was a year ago, and now her father's living with a female escort, let's put it that way. I think that about covers it. Okay, what have I missed in chat? Where do I said if I feel obligated to be here but not invested in the game at all? Wherever you want to sit, Sam says, you never have to be here. I'm always happy to see you, and everyone for that matter. But I know games aren't for everyone. This game especially has been the only game where I think I've had... Can you sit in my lap? You know what I mean? If you send me like a little miniature... There you go, it's now on my left leg. I hope that's what you wanted. I know you hate the miniatures. But yeah, this game is for sure not for everyone. It's the only game that I think I've really had someone leave partway through. And it was around the child abuse aspects of it. But yeah, let's get into it. We finished the first 3 chapters. I was actually pleasantly surprised. A chapter an hour is my goal for this game. I don't always get there, but I was pleasantly surprised and pleased that we made that last time. Well, I still have all the miniatures. They're all sitting right here, off to the side. Got Randovania running on Linux. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. I was trying to get a randomizer up for Paper Mario, the original Paper Mario 64. The randomizer officially got taken over by someone just only a couple weeks or months ago. It's fairly new. But I'm waiting for them to... They've only done like a release of seeds of it, whereas the old one, which no longer works, I tried it, and I tried to like submit a ticket on it, but the dev was like, yeah, I've handed it off to this other person, and they're not supporting it anymore. It had like the full randomized like list. If you've ever done like a Pokemon randomizer, the global, whatever it's called, global Pokemon randomizer, it had that kind of UI where you can check off like I want to randomize A, B, but not C, and so on. So I'm kind of waiting for them to put that out before I take a look at it again, unless they put out a seed that really speaks to me. But currently they put out 4 ones, and none of them really speak to me at this point. But yeah, let's kick it off.
Oh, 来た来た。おはよう、レナ。
今日はケイチ君の方が早かったね。
普段を棚にあげるわけじゃないが、俺が朝の待ち合わせでレナに勝つなんて珍しいこともあるもんだぜ。
はあ。レナ、今朝はちょっとお寝坊した。ゆうべ寝つかれなくってね。
レナもか？実は俺もなんだよ。昨日の大騒ぎの余韻がずーっと残っててさ。布団に入っててもなかなか眠くならなくて夜が長く感じたぜ。
Yesterday, I had a lot of fun with my friends, went home still riding that high. I was too full to eat dinner. I kept talking with my parents about the great time I had over the past few days. I was so pumped up that I couldn't go to sleep. Kinda sounds like I'm a little kid. But given that Rena seemed to be the same way, I felt better about it. No, I felt better isn't the right way of phrasing it. I should say, I'm glad to know that we shared the same feeling. Rena went treasure hunting after I left. I'm sure she found many adorable things. Went home and talked with her parents about how great the day was.
あ、みーちゃんだ。おはよ
おお、ミオンが先に待ってるなんて今日は雪が降るかもな。
Yeah, the Pokemon randomizer I've done for... I think I've done it for 2 or 3 different kinds. I've definitely done it for Gold, Silver, Crystal, that Gen 2, and I've done it for Emerald, which is Gen 3, and I think I did it for Gen 1. I used to do like fully randomized Nuzlockes where, you know, not even just randomizing Pokemon, I'd randomize their types, their movesets, the types of those moves. So you'd be like, okay, what are my starting 3 Pokemon? It's a Diglett, which is now Ice Dragon. There's a Moltres, which is Bug Ice, and a Voltorb, which is Ground Poison. Except none of those learn any moves related to their type. They learn like Fire, Flying, and Ground moves, respectively. And you have to basically rewrite the type alignment chart in your head, because you're like, oh, I have a Pikachu, it's electric. And you're like, no, Pikachu's now water grass type. But it only learns steel type moves. I found that interesting. I didn't really get too far on most of my runs. There was one run I made it to, this was an emerald, I made it to the 8th gym and then I died and I was so mad. I stopped doing randomized runs for quite a while.
人が珍しく先に待ってりゃそういうこと言うわけ？それを言ったら私より先に待ってた圭一くんも珍しいよ。雪が降るかもね。人のこと言えないね。
It's gonna be another happy day today. I had fun the day before yesterday. I had fun yesterday. So I'm gonna have fun today for sure. I'm happy. Miana's happy too. Of course, Rena and my other friends are equally happy. I'm not afraid to say it. And I wish these happy days would last forever. Sounds like a flag that's just got triggered to make today not happy.
今日は何をして遊ぼうな。
今日の部活？何がいいだろうね。レナは提案ある？そうだね。昨日、おとといと体を使うゲームが続いたから、今日はあまり体に激しくないゲームがいいな。
そうだな。レナの言うのも一理あるぜ。部活は肉体勝負だけが全てじゃねえだろ。
もちろん。心、技、体、すべての要素において完璧であってこそ部活メンバーだからね。じゃあ今日は何かテーブルゲームで遊ぶことにしよう。
Everybody was early this morning. We enjoy our walk to school for once. After a while, we started talking about the upcoming festival. They told me the festival is called Watsunagashi. It's the biggest event of the year in Hinamizawa.
そうだそうだ。昨日沖宮の家に親類が集まっていろいろと話が出たんだけどさ、ケイちゃんの話題が出たんだよ。
俺？園崎家の重鎮が集まって一体何の相談だよ。
いやさ、昨日のエンジェルモートでのケイちゃんの活躍を見てた店長の吉郎おじさんがさ、ケイちゃんのことを相当気に入っちゃったみたいでさ、それでいろいろと話を聞いてみたら、他の親類も意外にケイちゃんのことを知ってる人が多いんだよね。ひなみ沢の名物男みたいな言われようだったよ。
名物男ってのはまた微妙な称号だな。その称号の9割方はミオンの罰ゲームに関係があるような気がするぞ。
それだけじゃないけどさ、ノリもいいし元気があって無鉄砲なところも今時の若い子にしては感心感心とみんなベタ褒めだったよ。
I felt a bit embarrassed now that people I hadn't even met were speaking well of me.
でね、今後の渡流しのお祭りで何かで活躍してくれないかなって話が出てね。ケイちゃん目立つこととか好きでしょ？
おいおいおいおい、本人不在で勝手に話を進めるな。俺は孤独と静寂を愛するロンリーガイだぜ。
誰がロンリーガイだ？ローンボーイの間違いでしょ？はあ、ローンってケイチくん、お金に困ってるなら協力するよ。は
あ、うおー、そこまで財布事情に困ってねえし、レナも真に受けてそんな目で見るな。
We really were still feeling the after effects of yesterday. Mion and I made a lot of noise teasing each other on the way to school. Rena watched us and laughed happily. Sadako and Rika-chan were already there when we arrived at school. They were also full of energy. Tomita-kun and Okumura-kun were there too. From that, I could tell that they also had a good time yesterday. Everybody had been having a good time, really. Hinamizawa, everybody was happy.
まだ引っ越してきて1年も経ったわけじゃないけどさ。
どうしたの突然？
いやさ、ひなみ沢に引っ越してきて俺幸せになったなって。
どうしたのケイちゃん、急に臭いこと言い出して。レナにはわかるよ。ひなみ沢に引っ越してきてすべてが幸せになった気持ちよくわかる。この村にはね、
きっと人を幸せにする魔法がかかってるんだと思うから。
She specifically says it has some kind of magic.
レナは幸せか？
レナはひなみ沢に引っ越してきてからが毎日幸せだよ。
そうだな。そいつは俺もだ。
ちょっと、なんかおじさんだけのけ者っぽくない？ブーブー。
The sky was clear, and the few thin clouds were pure white. Cry of cicadas were telling me that the summer would be coming earlier than usual. Watsunagashi is just around the corner. I'm sure we'll have great fun at the festival too. There will be more and more fun days to come, I'm sure of it. Summer's just around the corner. Oh, and we've switched to Rena because they felt the need to make her text pink, so that's your cue that we've switched characters. The last class of the day was finally over, meaning that it was time for club activities. I was sure it would be fun. I couldn't wait. But then, Mi-chan received a call and told us something had come up and she had to go, so we didn't have a club meeting today. I was really looking forward to it. There's nothing I could do, but I could at least chat with Keiichi-kun on the way home. It'll be fun. Keiichi-kun sometimes says mean things, but he's very funny. When I chat with him, my depression goes away. Wait, what did I just say? Am I depressed? I have so much fun every day, and I'm as happy as I can be. What did I have to be depressed about? Well, it was obvious. Because of Rena-san, my father is happy now. Before I met her, he was like a lamp in broad daylight. Honestly, he was like the living dead. After he met Rena-san, he started to smile like he used to when he was living with my mother. He enjoyed talking with her and started going out with her. You could probably say they went on dates. Now he looks 10 or 20 years younger. Rena-san gets along with my father very well. She's very kind to me too. There's actually no reason for me to hate her. But bitter memories of my parents' divorce and my many regrets are gradually eating away at my heart. Was it okay to accept that woman? Rena-san might be the same as how Uncle Akihito turned out to be. Is she the enemy who takes my happiness away with her very existence? With or without bad intentions? Am I going to sit around until everything collapses again? Should I fight the enemy before it's too late? Rena-san comes to my house a little too obviously. Since my father started letting her stay the night, many of her belongings have turned up in the house. My father and I don't smoke, but there's an ashtray in the living room. The futon in our guest room is hers now. In the bathroom there's a toothbrush and shampoo I'd never choose to buy. I started to feel awkward about those things. That's when I started noticing it at the front door when I came home from school. Her perfume. I asked my father once if he was thinking about getting married to Rena-san. He looked a little embarrassed, perplexed, and confused. He told me, not yet. He knew I was hurt by the divorce. That's probably why he couldn't admit that he wanted to remarry. That's why he said, not yet. He'd consider it, but not while I was still living with him. That's what he meant, I guess. There's only one reason why you don't want to get remarried to Rena-san. I feel offended that my sanctum, my family, is being invaded. I might be being selfish, though. I know keeping my father all to myself means keeping him miserable like he was before he met Rena-san. He has a life to live too. It's his right to heal from the pain from the divorce, and to live and to find his new love. He wouldn't have had to go through that painful life if I'd prevented the divorce from happening in the first place. He has a right to a happy new life that lets him forget the pain he never deserved, and I don't have any right to stop him. In fact, I have an obligation to try to return his happiness to him. I have to pay for my sin, my inability to prevent his divorce. And what should I do to make both of us happy? It wouldn't be that difficult. All I would need to do would be to give my silent approval of their relationship. My father tells me he won't get remarried while we live together. That means I should stop leaning on my family, be strong, and live on my own as soon as I can. Although, that doesn't mean I can tell him not to go without her until that day. Rena-san comes to our house to see him despite her busy schedule. She even stays the night whenever her shifts permit. They're adults. I have no right to say anything against that. That's why I chose to give my silent approval to their relationship, and tried to see her as little as I could. I get along with Rena-san on the surface. I know my father would have a hard time keeping face if we didn't. It's a very exhausting and painful thing to get along with a person I don't really like. So whenever Rena-san comes over, I spend as much time as possible outside, then head home late. Michan's club activities are the most convenient things to do to kill the time. There are some days that we don't have a club meeting. On those days, I while away my time at the garbage dump hunting for treasure alone. That's how I started to make my secret hideout. My father can do whatever he likes with Rena-san at home. I don't have to see them together. I can spend my time peacefully at my hideout. I sometimes feel depressed about my life. I sometimes want to talk to somebody about it, but nothing will change, even if I talk to somebody. This is all I can really do. The most important thing for me should be to overcome the sadness of losing my family as fast as I can and regain my own happiness. I have so much fun every day. I'm happy every day. Even on the way home, Kichikun was talking about funny things that made me laugh. My feeling gloomy in spite of that was kind of rude. My father should be happy. I should be happy. I just feel sad because I still can't separate from my father. Compared to the unexpectedness of the divorce, Rena-san's invasion is a very slow process. I think Rena-san understands how I feel. She treats me very kindly, but she doesn't do more than that. I think she understands that I'd feel uncomfortable if she did. I respect Rika-chan because she's strong, even without her parents. Compared to the pain of losing both her parents unexpectedly, my problem is like nothing. I respect Sadako-chan's toughness too. She also lost her parents and was forced to live a painful life under her uncle and aunt. Compared to the cruel treatment she had to go through, my relationship with Rena-san is a blessed one. I keep feeling anxious. That's just because I'm still immature. Because I feel like I'm not ready to separate from my father. I have to be strong like Rika-chan and Sadako-chan. I have to try my best to be happy. I'm going to live with all my might, in order to regain the peace of mind that I lost that day. My assumption that I'm not happy is just a mistake. I should appreciate the wonderful days I spend with my wonderful friends. Just by realizing that I'm happy, the world shines so brightly.
それでね、あんまりにも可愛いから、レナ、ハウお持ち帰りって。
やれやれ。レナは毎日を楽しく過ごすことに関しては達人だな。
レナは毎日が楽しいよ。こんなにも素敵な友人たちに囲まれて過ごす、こんなにも素晴らしい日々があって、どうして不幸が感じられる？
だな。不幸なんかここにはないよ。いつまでも楽しくて不幸なことなんかとは一切無縁。それがひなみ沢ってとこなんだからよ。
He should have stopped right there, but he just kept going.
レナが羨ましいよな。その悩み知らずな能天気さが羨ましいぜ。
はう、バカにされてるっぽい気がする。でも毎日が楽しいなら私は能天気でもいいかな。
I don't have any worries. I feel like I do, but that's just because I'm immature and still want my father's attention. Come on. Say the magical words, it'll cheer you up.
Huh?
It makes sense to say it now, but I was going to say it anyway, because this is my magical phrase that always cheers me up.
なんだよ突然。でもそれでこそレナだぜ。
That's right. This is me, Rena. Not Rena. Rena still wants her parents' attention. Rena is a goofy and carefree girl. She knows that every day is full of happiness. She has the kind heart to appreciate it too. I should forget about icky things. I should live a wonderful life free of anything icky. Icky starts with I. That's why I got rid of the I in Rena. I'm Rena. I'm going to recapture the happiness I lost when I left Hinamizawa. I will overcome any pain and hardship. I can be happy because I got rid of the I key things. I'm sure there are only incredible things waiting for me. Oh, incredible starts with an I too. I was almost home, and when my house appeared, I noticed something different there. There was a truck parked in front of my house. There's nothing on the back of it, but I could tell it brought something here, because I saw some cardboard boxes, blankets, and ropes on the ground. From the front of the house, I heard the voices of two young men saying, "Well, we'll be going now." They passed me by as I walked towards the front door. They were wearing some kind of work uniforms. They looked like delivery people. My father was about to close the door when he noticed me.
何かあったの？
おかえり、レーナ。見てごらん、すごいぞ。
My father looked to be in a good mood. I didn't know why he was. Whenever he smiled like that, I just wanted to smile back at him. His eyes used to look like those of a dead fish, no matter how hard I tried to smile at him. These days, he could put on a big smile just to surprise me. He's been literally coming back to life since a year ago when we moved back to Hinamizawa. No, since he started dating Rena-san. When I see him smile like this, I'm happy, but at the same time, I feel confused, so I don't know whether I should thank Rena-san or not.
ほら、すごいだろう。
He took me to the living room. He was probably expecting me to go all ooh and ah. Whether there was something in the living room or not, I was ready to go ooh and ah for him.
わあ、何これ？どうしたのお父さん？
I tried to sound excited and surprised. He was standing behind me, probably smiling with satisfaction at hearing my excited voice. I, on the other hand, was desperately trying to understand what was going on. For a moment, I thought I was in someone else's house. You see, the living room had been completely redecorated. The furniture we had was all basically from the former house in Ibaraki. My parents bought most of the furniture when they got married, so it was all old and a little dirty. Some of them still had crayon scribbles I drew on when I was very little. But all of that was gone. Everything in the living room had turned a pastel color, looking very sophisticated, like the rooms you see in soap operas. The new carpet looked very tropical. The new curtains matched with the carpet. The new sofa looked very expensive. The living room in general looked like a resort hotel. But we were too lazy to draw all that, so here's the ceiling light. The channel switcher of our old TV was broken. We had to use pliers to change channels. It was gone too, replaced by a new one with a big screen. The room's lights had also been replaced by nicer looking ones. Geez, they did all this in one day, that's impressive. The living room looked like a totally different world under the new fluorescent lights.
すごいねお父さん。これはどうしたの？
心機一転さ。もう引っ越してきて1年にもなるんだから、お父さんもそろそろ気分を切り替えて、新しい生活に踏み出さないとなって思ったんだよ。
I suggested redecorating the house once in order to cheer him up, because he was still in pain after the divorce. But he wasn't interested at the time. He didn't want to get rid of the old furniture he'd chosen with my mother, because he still couldn't get over her, even though she cruelly broke up with him. I wanted to suggest it again when the time was right. Never thought he'd do it on his own
そう
initiative.
だね。こんな綺麗なお部屋だと心も晴れ晴れするもんね。素敵なお部屋だと思うよ。
いいだろう。ほら、レーナ、お前、ユリースに憧れてたろ。まだ組み立ててないけど、ほら、ちゃんとあるんだぞ。
はうー、
This is a rocking chair. Look at it. Wee.
これ、私がもらってもいいのかな？
こらこら、それはみんなの共用のものだから、レーナだけってわけじゃないんだぞ。
共用でもレナが占領しちゃうからダメ。
My father explained the details of his redecoration proudly. He told me that he only did the living room this time, but he was going to redecorate all of the rooms. He sure had become more active. There's some parts about the redecoration I didn't like, but I still thought it was great because it made him happy. I found the old furniture outside in the
これ
yard.
は捨てちゃうの？
まあこの際だと思ってな。後で業者が引き取りに来てくれることになってる。
Getting rid of the old furniture means putting an end to my mother. I hated the furniture because it smelled like my mother, and I tried to break everything once. I understand why my father wants to take this opportunity to get rid of them, but for some reason this new living room makes me feel like I no longer belonged here. My father didn't choose the new furniture. Rena-san probably did. Most likely, my father and Rena-san decided to redecorate the living room and went to a furniture store to buy everything. I tried to think positively. The reason why my father didn't tell me about the redecoration was because he wanted to surprise me. No, my father never really considers things that deeply. So I supposed he didn't tell me because he just didn't think he needed to tell me. I'm sure he didn't redecorate the living room to make me feel like I was no longer welcome. Don't be negative, Rena. My father didn't have any bad intentions. He doesn't want to get rid of me. He doesn't think I'm the reason he can't get remarried. And yet, why did I feel sad looking at the old furniture in the yard? Why did I feel like I didn't belong? I realized the reason right away. The reason was me. To him, wanting to have a fresh start by getting rid of the things that remind him of my mother might be an indication of his unconscious— you mean subconscious, not unconscious game— desire to get rid of her daughter. My father doesn't really consider things deeply, so he might not be thinking that I'm the reason he can't get remarried. But he understands that he can't get remarried while we live together. By staying with him, I'm torturing my father. It was my fault that he had to get a divorce. That's why I have to support him, to help recapture his happiness. I couldn't just keep it all to myself. I have to start thinking about living on my own. I don't need to go to university. I should think about getting a job. But who would hire an uneducated girl like me? Even if somebody did hire me, I wouldn't be able to earn enough money to live on my own. Maybe I should think about working at a hostess club, like Rena-san does. People only choose the jobs they can. A girl like me doesn't have a lot of choices. Hello, Avier, how's it going? Not a lot of companies would hire me or pay the amount of money that I needed to live on my own. But come to think of it, where is the place where I belong? Whenever I end up feeling like this, I miss my secret hideout in the trash piles. I love to get under my blankets and feel the warmth on a cold night. The hideout gets hot and humid during the day, and very cold at night. Not a comfortable place to spend time in. But it might be the place where I can relax the most, more than I can at my house. No, I shouldn't think like this. I shouldn't think that my house has been invaded by Rena-san. I should thank her for making my father happy. Rena-san isn't trying to kick me out of the house. She's trying to get along with me. But I'm not opening my heart to her. I'm the bad one. I'm the bad one. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Tadashi-kun and Zanten get along, and she abused him for a long time. Compared to him, my situation is a lot easier. Sadako-chan and Rika-chan lost their parents, and they live together now. They've been through very hard times. On the other hand, I still live with my father. I should feel blessed. I shouldn't think I'm unhappy just because of these things. I am happy. I am blessed. The trouble with me is I still can't admit that I'm happy. My father kept talking proudly about the redecoration. I nodded at him with a big smile and let him keep at it.
そうだ、いけない。レイナ、 すまないんだがちょっとお使いを頼めないか？
お使い？うん、いいよ。
お父さんな、ジャケットそれがな今日届くらしいんだ。ちょっとお父さんは回収業者さんを手伝わなきゃならないから、レーナが代わりに取ってきてくれないか？
いいよ。お店を教えて。どんなジャケットを取り寄せたんだろう。楽しみ。
No matter what they look like, I'm sure Rena-san picked them out for him. Though I don't mind going. I'd rather go to the store than listen to his stories about the redecoration of our living room. I got the receipt, asked him where the store is, changed my clothes, and left the house. I started pedaling my bicycle and looked at the old furniture in the yard for the last time. They used to be the object of my hatred, but for some reason, they now made me feel sentimental. Is it because I still regret the loss of my mother, even though I hate her? I couldn't let poisonous emotions take over my heart. I understood that in my mind, but I just couldn't get rid of the feeling. The old furniture wasn't the only stuff that was kicked out of the house. There was also a lot of junk that I had brought home from the landfill. My father was probably going to throw that away too. He doesn't like the junk I collect. He'll probably let the delivery company take it all together with the old furniture. Just like an animal that rubs its scent on its home in order to feel secure, I collected all the junk in order to make sure that I could stay here. No, that's not it. Also, why is my disc at 100%? Disc, what are you doing? Okay, it spiked back down. If you had a blip right there, that was probably my disc being weird. Oh, good luck with your rando. I wanted to bring them into my house because they were abandoned by their former owners, and they needed a place to live. The store where my father ordered the jackets from is a fancy boutique. It's hard to believe my father would shop at a store like this on his own. I could tell right away that Rena-san took him here. I handed over his receipt to the cashier. A short time later, the store manager came out wearing a perplexed look.
リュウグ様、大変申し訳ございません。実は入荷のトラックが高速で事故渋滞に巻き込まれているようでございまして、おそらくはもうじき到着すると思うのですが。
Said that the driver had called him a while ago, told him he just got off the highway and would be here in about an hour. I didn't need to know all the details, but he explained them to me anyway. I asked him if I should come back tomorrow. He insisted that I should wait because the truck would be coming shortly, urging me to take a seat on their sofa. But I didn't really feel comfortable waiting there, so I told him I'd be back soon and left the store. I wondered if there were any fast food restaurants nearby. I might have to go all the way back to the station. I looked around and found a coffee house. The glass on the door was black, so I couldn't see inside. But there was a poster saying the price for a cup of tea is lower than normal for women on weekdays. I'd just be going to get a cup of tea to kill some time. It should be okay. But still, I hesitated to go inside before opening the door. Her first impression of the coffee house was the smell of cigarettes. It's normal for coffee houses to be filled with cigarette smoke. It's like a requirement. Rena still regretted her decision. While she was thinking about leaving, the proprietor spoke to her brusquely and showed her to a table. Rena gave up on the idea of leaving and sat down. The atmosphere in the shop was far from a clean, normal coffee house where you'd go to simply enjoy coffee and cigarettes. More like a place where vulgar people would hang around. Rena didn't feel comfortable at all, but what bothered her the most was the laughter of a man and woman sitting together in the very back of the shop. The table was behind a planter, so depending on how one looked at it, one could say she was in the spot most protected from their laughter. Rena looked as though she wanted to leave as soon as she finished her tea. The bell hanging from the entrance door rang, letting her know a customer just came in. It's a little surprising for her that a coffee shop like this could draw in so many customers. Rena peeked at the newcomers from behind the planter. There were two of them. They looked like vulgar men, the kind you didn't want to get involved with the instant you saw them. The proprietor tried to show them to a table, but they ignored him and walked towards the back. They walked up to the couple who had been laughing loudly and greeted them with a bow. Already troubleshooting?
やっと来よったんか。まあ座れや。
The couple stopped laughing. The man told the newcomers to sit down in a threatening tone of voice. As instructed, the two of them took a seat.
どういうこった？
すんまへん。なんとかその。
ごたくはええねポゲ。とっととうなるもんさらさんかい。
The two of them looked at each other before they took an envelope out of their pockets and put it on the table. The man roughly grabbed the two envelopes and tore one of them open. Inside, there were many wrinkled 10,000 yen bills bound into a bundle with a rubber band. He opened the other one to make sure it also had cash in it, and then threw it to the woman.
数えんね。
ちょっと私に命令しないでくれる？もともと私の金なんだから。
じゃがましい。黙って数えんなええんね。
The man yelled at the woman. She licked her thumb, looking annoyed, and started to count the cash expertly. The two newcomers hung their heads while she counted. Lighting a cigarette, the man waited for her to finish counting.
はいよ、全部あるわよ。
The woman said that after flicking through the last bill, the newcomers looked relieved. The man, however, didn't look satisfied as he stared at the bundle of bills the woman was holding.
それいくらあった？
全部って言ったわよ。
全部っていくらかっちゅって聞いとんねん。
だから私が貸した金全部だって言ってるでしょ。
バゲが。利子はついとるか聞いとるんねん。
The man and Ritsuko yelled at each other. Even though they were making all that noise, the other customers acted like they didn't hear
おい、兄
anything.
さん方。200万ビッタンこっきゃないね。どういうこっちゃ？
The two of them were trying to find some excuses to make. It seemed like this behavior had touched the man's nerves as he started looking furious.
おら！黙っとったらわからんがな。
His angry voice echoed through the shop. He hit the table hard and dropped a glass on the floor. The noise thickened the tension in the atmosphere.
すんまへん。
Saving is very important, so that is quite unfortunate.
ごしとら出るとこ出ても一個に構わんでんの。
それはどうかご勘弁ください。
The two newcomers must have been in an extremely vulnerable position. They bowed so deeply that their foreheads almost touched the
それ
table.
を勘弁したるって今日呼んだんねん。それがどういうけじめのつけ方な。あ？
すんまへん。エロすんまへん。
While you could pity them, the newcomers looked as vulgar as the man threatening them, making it hard to decide whether you should feel sorry for them or not. After a while, Ritsuko opened her mouth, as if to offer them help.
てっちゃん、すごいんじゃかわいそうでしょ。
These guys have original artwork, you bet they do.
ごめんね。うちの人、銭絡むとすぐトサカに来ちゃう人で。
銭絡むと余計だんねん。お前にあやつけよったんから本気になっとんよ、おら。
もうバカなこと言っても何にも出ないわよ。
Man pulled Ritsuko roughly into his arms and frantically kissed her lips without caring about the other customers. Their kiss wasn't the lovely ones that normal couples would share. It looked obscene instead. He let her lips go to take a breath, kissed them again, and repeated that for a while. After a while, he finally got bored of kissing and let her go.
私のことになるとすぐ頭に血が上っちゃうのよね。困ったもんなのよ。
おう、そうよ。こいつと俺はいわば一心同体ね。この女に泥塗り腐るやつは俺に塗ったんと同じやんな。血祭りじゃすまんね。
いつぞやかの、ほら、あいつ。あれ、表連れてってからどうしたんだったっけ？
あんバカか。 表出るとか抜かしょんからかかとくれてやったわ。野郎空手やるとか抜かしおるからどの程度か思うたん。ちょっと芝居たら即土下座やん。拍子抜けしたからズボン脱がせてそいつでこの表の歩道を磨かせてやったわ。おお、俺町の役に立っとんね。お役所に表彰してもらいたいんわ。
やだ、そんなことさせたの？あんたって時々容赦がないのよね。
They started laughing loudly like they were doing earlier. Their laughter obviously intimidated their companions.
てっちゃん、今日はね、すっごく機嫌がいいの。普段だったら銭が足りんって騒ぎ出して、今頃あんたたちすっぱだかにされて玉子川に叩き込まれてるわよ。
すまへんすまへん。
まあ利子は忘れたちゅうたかてかっちり期日までに額を揃えたんだきゃ感心さな。そこいらへん評価したってもええんで。
それでね、てっちゃんの利子ちょいとあんまりだと思ったのよ。今日だから5本で済むけどすぐに売買ゲームになっちゃうでしょ。そしたらあんたたちすぐに逆立ちしても払えなくなっちゃうわよ。でね、私あんたたちにいい話があんの。てっちゃん、悪いけどあんたちょっと席を外してちょうだい。
しょうがねえな。
The man left the table with a grin and headed for the bathroom. He was far too amenable to that request, as if they'd planned for him to leave the table at that moment. Ritsuko made sure he was in the bathroom, then took some papers out of her bag and spread them on the table.
あんたたちも若いんだから、あんなヤクザに絡まれて一生を不意にしたくないでしょ。だからね、てっちゃんの利子は今日きっちり払っちゃいなさい。そうすればあんたたちはとりあえずあいつとは縁を切れるわけなんだから。
そりゃそうですけど、でも50万なんてこれ以上もう払えないっす。
まあそうよね。200万だって相当精一杯集めたんでしょ。さらに50万も工面できるあてなんてないでしょう。
They must have done their very best to collect even the money they brought today. It must be impossible for them to collect even a dime from anybody now. They hung their heads and told her that.
でね、ほら、気を利かせて私が書いてきてあげたのよ。
Guys looked at the paper on the table and muttered under their
連
breaths.
載もいらないんで、ちょいと利率はあれだけど、これなら即50万積んでくれるわよ。それにさ、この利率でもてっちゃんの利率よりははるかにマシだと思うんだけど、どう思うかしら。
It would be easy for anyone to try and guess what Ritsuko was trying to force
こ
them
れ
to
に
do.
サインしたのを見せれば彼も男気を感じて勘弁してくれると思うわね。どうする？ああ、万年筆使うなら置いとくわよ。
They read the small print on the documents and were stunned by the outrageous interest rate. Ritsuko didn't force them to do anything. She just looked out the window and smoked her cigarette. After a while, the man returned from the bathroom.
おう、話はついだが。
They looked at him, steeled themselves, and took the pen.
てっちゃんの利子借金で一括返済するって。
おおおう、感心な若人だね。男は背負うもんがなくちゃあかんね。
They must have planned this from the very beginning. Man and Ritsuko got whatever they wanted and grinned at each other. There were many things to fill out on the documents, and it was taking them a long time. Man and Ritsuko, already knowing that, started talking amongst
い
themselves.
つかお前のひなみ沢の旦那の調子はどうなんね。
ん？旦那なんてよしてよね。
どうなんよ。だいぶ銭持っとんと聞かされてるん。どのくらい絞れそうなんよ。
そうそう、それがさ、すっ ごいのよ。別れた奥さんがだいぶ慰謝料をくれたらしいってのは聞いてたのよ。でもね、それが本当にすっげえあるらしいのよね。
かなりってどのくらいねん？
銀行に5000万くらい持ってるわよ。あぶく銭なわけだしね。もう気前がいいのな。
That would be about $500,000 US.
なんねそれ。
Back in the 80s.
で、どの辺まで行けそうなんね？
私にだいぶお熱みたいだからね。だって私が言えば何でも買うのよ。何でも。あんたみたいなドケチとは大違いよね。私も本気になっちゃおうかしら。
抜かせボケ。俺以上の男が他にいるか。
もうこんなところでよしってよ。もう
で、そのひなみ沢の旦那にどう持ってくつもりなんよ？
あんたを出しに手切れ金がいるって方向で持ってくつもりなのよ。
なんぼふっかけるつもりね？
そりゃ
つっくづく恐ろしい女じゃんねえ。エキストラがいるときは呼んでな。俺も大暴れしちゃるんで。
すみません。書きました。
ああ、じゃそれ持ってローン行こうか。律子、会計頼むね。
Man pet them on their shoulders and then walked to the door. Another person was just about to enter and they nearly ran into each other. The man probably wouldn't make way for the person, considering his personality. When he noticed who that person was, he stepped aside. The person looked as vulgar as all the other men. He was wearing a black suit with sunglasses on. He wasn't that big, but his stern look was very intimidating. What do you mean not that big? Was he smaller in the original? A little bit, I guess. Not a lot. It was clear at a glance that he was a gangster, and a professional one at that. The man who was behaving badly earlier looked a little nervous in front of him. As Ritsuko finished paying the check, she noticed the man in the suit.
総支配人。どうもおはようございます。
うん。
The man in the suit said nothing. He just raised his chin as if saying, "Fuck off." Ritsuko and the others bowed to him and left the shop in a hurry. The proprietor noticed the man in the suit, also greeting him with a bow. Who could he have been? He appeared sedate compared to the other men, but he must be dangerous because he made even them step aside. Everybody in the shop thought the same thing and tried not to look at him. The man in the suit looked around and found the menu on the wall. The proprietor walked up to him hesitantly.
はい。何か部長報がございましたでしょうか。
この日替わりデザートのスイートなんとかというのは今日はやっているのか？
いえ、本当は今日はやってないんですが、どうしてもとおっしゃるんでしたら特別にご用意を。
無理なら無理と言ってくれればいい。出直す。
ほら葛西、特別にご用意って言ってくれてるじゃないですか。ここまで来てみっともない。
The girl seemed to be the only one who couldn't read the heavy atmosphere in the shop. She came in laughing cheerfully. It was Mion Sonozaki's twin sister, Shion. Shion pushed Kasai into the store while he hesitated. She looked at the girl who was sitting down and stopped in her tracks.
あれ、やっぱりそうだ。ハロローン、レナさんじゃないですか。こんにちは。
あ、しーちゃん。
こんなとこで会うなんてびっくりです。あれ、お一人？ひょっとして誰かと待ち合わせ？お姉かな？いやいや、ひょっとしてケイちゃんかな？
しーちゃん。
Screw off, Bly.
その連れの人は？
葛西のこと？
The dude with the
私のボ
skull
ディーガードとかを
necktie.
持っといてください。命の危険が迫ったら葛西が守ってくれるんだよね。
それがお望みでしたら命に変えてでも。
うわー、葛西、あと20も若かったらやばいかもだね。顔は怖いけど面白いやつです。こちらはね、竜宮レナさん、お姉のお友達。
葛西です。よろしく。
葛西さん、さっきすれ違った人たちは知り合いですか？
Kasai nodded, indicating that he was familiar with them.
誰？私は全然あんなの見たことないけど。
男は北条哲平。ちょいと礼儀知らずのろくでなしです。
Shion seemed to know who he was once she heard the name Hojo.
女の人の方は？
Screw off, fly. What did I
間
say?
宮里奈。源氏名だと思いました。確か律子って名前だったかと。フラワーロードの店の一つで働いてる従業員です。
葛西さん、里奈さんとその北条さんはどういう人たちなんですか？とても仲が良さそうに見えました。
北条は確か里奈とは深い仲かと。たちの悪い連中ですので関わり合いになられない方がいいと思います。
どうたちが悪いんですか？
Rena pressed him for the answer, and Kasai seemed to back down a little from that pressure.
女の私生活には触れないのが仁義ってもんです。
どうたちが悪いんですか？
それはご勘弁を。
どうたちが悪いんですか？
Rena kept asking the same question until she got an answer. Shion sensed how desperate Rena was and cut into the conversation.
葛西、意地悪しないで教えてあげなさいよ。興味本位で聞いてるわけじゃなさそうだしさ。ね、レナさん。
There was tension developing between Rena and Kasai. Shion seemed to be the only one who couldn't read the mood. Kasai finally opened his mouth.
あの二人はたちの悪いろくでなしどもです。恐喝と博打で生計を立ててると聞いています。詐欺行為もやるって話で。
詐欺ってどんな？
あいつらの詐欺ってのは、まあ何？結婚詐欺ってやつですか？要するに男の人に言い寄っていい感じになったところで相棒の男が乱入して俺の女に何しやがるって金を巻き上げる古典的恐喝です。
散々貢がされた挙句根こそぎ巻き上げようっていうクズどもです。最近でかい相手を引っ掛けたらしいと噂になっています。
じゃあそりゃあどちら様か存じないけど気の毒なことで。でもまあ鼻の下を伸ばした代償なわけだし自業自得。
そんな言い方はないもんです。男は時にコロッと女に騙されちまうもんですよ。
ほう、何それ。葛西をコロッと騙した女って誰？マスター、デザートは私と葛西とあとレナさんでって。あれ？
今お帰りになりましたよ。
Rena was already gone. The door, which had just closed, looked as if it was the only thing that knew where she went. So, if you don't remember those two, so one is her father's new girlfriend, quote unquote. The other is the uncle who we killed, what was that, in chapter 3, and who is physically abusive to Sadako in, yeah, that's chapter 3. So if you didn't hate him enough already, you now have another reason to hate him. I got home, the door was locked. I used my key to get in and found a note in the living room. Something's come up, so I have to go. I'm gonna eat out tonight, is what the note said. This wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. Each time he only told me he had to go to Okonomiya for something. But I knew the real reason, because I've heard him talking on the phone once. Rena-san must have had some free time between jobs and asked him out to have dinner together. I heaved a sigh, looked at the new living room I hated, and went to my room. I thought back over what I just heard at the coffee house. I tried to rationalize the meaning of her actions there. Maybe she had to pretend to be a bad person because she was being threatened by the man. But even after the man called Techon left the table, she continued to threaten the guys and push them into signing the loan contract immediately. She was threatened to play along with the man. She shouldn't have done that. She was pretending to be a bad person. She could have shown a little bit of mercy or sympathy when he left her alone with them. It's like holding water in a bowl you made with your hands. No matter how sturdy you made the bowl, water would leak from your fingers. Mercy and sympathy leak out of you. But nothing, not even a drop of water, leaked from Rena-san. Her hands weren't even moist, they were all dried up. There was no water that could leak through those hands. Rena-san was threatening those guys as much as the man was. Neither was leading the other along. They were doing it together. That was it. Rena-san is a bad person. My brain cells accepted the idea with applause. After all, I always hated Rena-san. I just couldn't accept the feeling because my father liked her. At that moment, I could finally accept it. She's a bad person, just like my mother. She's an existence that will ruin everything and destroy my father's happiness just by being with him. I wonder if my father would understand that Rena-san is a bad person if I told him so. My father likes her so much he would jump over a cliff if she asked him to. He thinks everything she does or says is great, and he interprets everything about her in a positive way. He protects her and praises her without her asking him to. I'm not a kid anymore. I understand how a woman can tame a man. It's different from love. Love is about trying to build a relationship. Taming is just a way of satisfying the lust to dominate. She's just trying to make him into her slave. Women can deceive men, even my father. They can use dirty methods to ensnare men, like they're following a manual. It's the weak point all men are born with. Even with a strong will, they can't resist it. That's why we hate those women who exploit that weak point to deceive men. That's why I couldn't bring myself to like Rena-san. For the sake of our argument, let's assume I acknowledged an unreciprocated love like that. That would only be as long as it was love. And if it wasn't love, it was just a method to threaten and squeeze money out of him. I would never forgive her. I remembered their conversation at the coffee house. Rena-san said that my father's a big spender. In fact, I think he spends more money without hesitation than before he met Rena-san. I was happy that he started to regain an interest in going out into the world again. But now, I don't know whether I should be happy or not. He controls the money of the Ryugu family overall, but inside I do the grocery shopping. He often gives me his bank book so that I can withdraw money. Because of that, I know where he keeps his bank book, his personal seal, and other important stuff. They're in one of his drawers, which he usually locks. I know where he hides the key, and I know the combination of the cash box inside the drawer. He might be coming back soon, so I felt a little nervous, but I had to make sure. I opened the cash box. It had some bank books, personal seals, stamps, and unused postcards. I removed everything from the cash box to get at the bank books. Then I found something new. On the bottom of the box, there was a bundle of new 10,000 yen bills. Its thickness wasn't something I could ignore. There was also a paper wrapper that looked like it had been bundling the bills. The wrapper had a stamp that said it was a bundle of 1,000,000 yen. Usually kept some cash at home because it's troublesome to go to the bank every time you needed money. It was usually around 100,000 to 200,000 yen at most, 1 to 2,000 US. He's never kept such a big amount of money at home before because he knows it's unsafe. The extraordinary amount of 10,000 yen bills is abnormally intimidating even. I tried to open the bank book, but my fingers got numb all of a sudden. Part of me was trying to deny the things I heard at the coffee house. It wasn't because I wanted to defend my father, or even Rena-san. Because I didn't want to believe my father was the husband in Hinamizawa the blackmailers were talking about. I opened the bank book. The last time I saw it was about 2 or 3 months ago. It shows countless withdrawals since that day. I probably wouldn't normally understand what those numbers meant, but I felt in that moment as if 10 different digits were speaking to me. They were a series of cruel digits. It starts with some understandable expenses that I assume represent dinners or something, but then the amount of money starts to become nice round numbers, like a 5 or a 10. I can tell by looking at the dates he withdrew money that he wanted to have a certain amount of cash in hand when he went out with Rena-san. Among those expenses, a big number appeared all of a sudden. It was too much money to spend on a date, hundreds of thousands of yen. I looked at the date of the withdrawal and I traced it back in my memory. I remembered. Around that time, Rena-san was talking about moving into a new apartment. I know the market rate of rental apartments in Okinomiya. You need to put down 2 safety deposits and 2 payments of key money in order to rent an apartment. That amount of withdrawal sounded reasonable now. He paid the whole down payment for her new apartment. After that, big numbers appeared one after another. I could tell they were for congratulatory gifts for a new apartment or something. Numbers got bigger and bigger. It looked at first like he was only withdrawing the amount of money needed. But then he started withdrawing big amounts all at once because he knew he was going to use it someday anyway. Change meant only one thing. He lost his sense of value of money. The balance kept going down, and I started feeling anxious about what was going to happen if he continued spending money like that. But then I saw a deposit of a big amount of money into the account. Where did that money come from? There's only one thing I could think of. I opened the other bank book. It was easy, like a puzzle for kids. It's like playing with an easy jigsaw puzzle that comes with huge pieces that you don't even have to put together to see what the whole picture looks like. My father was using money from his time deposits. In other words, the settlement my mother paid my father when she divorced him. To him, it's curse money. I'd understand if he wanted to use it to get a new love. That was just an excuse to use the money from his time deposits. Money is money. Even though it's his divorce alimony, it's still important money for our future. Even though it's cursed money to him, doesn't mean he can waste it. Big expenses start appearing one after another. There are many expenses upwards of 6 digits. For some reason, I couldn't immediately tell they were for buying electric appliances and furniture. He must have been buying everything she asked him to. If, from the beginning, Rena-san was only seeing to check if he could end up being a big catch, she must have been trying to find out how much money she could squeeze out of him. My father bought her anything she wanted, no matter how expensive it was. She probably thinks of him as the perfect catch now. Numbers in the bank book told me so. The simple numbers and dates on the bank book had started talking to me. Around the time we started withdrawing big amounts of money, Rena-san started coming to the house more often. She also started spending the night. To Rena-san, my father was at first just a guy who spends big money. Around that time, she landed her big catch. My father used to refer to her as my friend in Okinomiya at first. He started referring to her as Rena-san around that time. This is partially his fault, but he was betrayed by his beloved wife. He was feeling hurt and down for a long time. It's also partially my fault. That's why I didn't want to blame him. He's not that good looking either. There's no way he's immune to women. He must not have been able to resist an attractive lady who aggressively approached him when he was feeling down. He's crazy about Rena-san, and see nothing other than her. Can't blame him because Rena-san trained him to be that way. I put the bank books and the other things back into the cash box. This cash box is just like my father's heart. Rena-san is eating up the contents. What should I do? Think, Rena Ryugu. I tell him about Rena-san's scheme? No, that probably won't do anything. The whole point of taming the animal is that it won't run away from its owner, even when the door is wide open. My father probably won't leave his cage even if I open the door. Should I confront Rena-san about her plot when he's with her? The results would be the same. Rena-san would run behind his back. He'd probably try to protect her. If she pressed her breasts against his back, he'd protect her no matter what. I couldn't make this a problem between me and him. First of all, I was trying to get rid of Rena-san for his sake. If we got mad at each other, it would only give the advantage to Rena-san. It'd be like I was putting myself into her trap. And that meant I couldn't make him do anything. If I couldn't make him break up with Rena-san, I'd have to talk to Rena-san directly. So instead of making my father fight, I'd have to fight in his place. But how? That guy Kasai-san who was with Shi-chan today seemed to know the man Rena-san was with. I wonder if I can somehow meet him again. It looks scary, but I was introduced to him as a friend of Mi-chan's. Michan has a lot of power around here. There's no way he would treat me badly. Wondered if you could tell Rena-san and the man to back off from my father. That'd help me a lot. I didn't know how I could meet him again. I could ask Michan for help, but I didn't want her to know about my situation. This is a problem of the Ryugu family. This is nobody's business but mine. Yeah, this is a battle I'd have to fight alone. I regretted my parents' divorce. I wept about the tragedy I could have prevented if I had tried. But I wasn't going to weep this time. I wasn't going to let the chance slip away. This time I would fight for my happiness. Okay, so we got one new tip called property estimate. Hiritsuko Mamiya-sama, Executive Housing Corporation. Attached estimate. We thank you for your past visits and inquiries to our office. Included the estimate for the property you inquired about. Basic information. Property name. Palace of Versailles, room 707. Property code 14M1421. Property type modern condominium. Layout 2LDK. Address Shishibone City, Oiwacho, Tuchome. Transportation Sumline, Gogura Station, 5 minutes on foot. Cost 49.8 million yen. Maintenance fee 20,000 yen. So that would be $500,000 US with a 200 maintenance fee. Other southeast corner room, elevator floor. Condominium fitness club membership included. Thank you for your interest in this property. The area around Gogura Station is a prime real estate zone for luxury condominiums. Along with future planned developments, the real estate values in and around the Gogura Station are expected to rise, and this property is not an exception. As a result, many prospective buyers are interested in this property. Hence, we'd like for you to understand that the selection process for this property will be done via lottery. Also, we also offer celebrity member preferential treatment, granting highly improved chances through additional lottery events. Please feel free to inquire with our agents for more details. Executive Housing Corporation. Celebrity Account Manager, Kawabata.
I'm back.
Hero. I'm not Mr. Feetman, but I am going to scold you. Because, why have you been here for 6 months? I know that was a Prime sub, and I assume you had Prime anyways. But no, stop that. How are you doing, Hero? I'm saying that you shouldn't have been subscribed for 6 months. Shouldn't have been subscribed for any amount of months.
監視役なの？
まあね。シオンのやつ、私と比べると突拍子もないことをするからさ、監視役が必要なわけよ。
ミオンもシオンもその意味においちゃ互角だと思うぞ。
Ichikan cut into the conversation. They ended up making a lot of noise, teasing each other like they always do. Mion made it sound like that man, Kasai-san, is some sort of territory boss in Okinomiya. It wouldn't be easy for me to meet him in person. But because he's Shi-chan's watchdog, I might be able to find a way. Problem, though, is I don't have any connection to Shi-chan either. Yes, this is Uncle Hunter. In fact, we just met the uncle like 20 minutes ago, who we slayed last time. And he's back. He's a bigger dick than ever. Yeah, fun stuff. We hang around every once in a while whenever she comes to Hinamizawa, but I've never called or visited her. I have no idea how we can meet. Even if I could meet Kasai-san, there's no guarantee that he'd help me. Seems like the kind of person who doesn't like to gossip about others. Told me about Rena-san at the coffee house only because Shi-chan pushed him to. Plus, the situation could grow worse very quickly while I waited for the chance to meet him. Any help he might offer could come too late. I remember Kasai-san told me that, as her next step, Rena-san usually uses her partner to threaten their catch. That would signify the end of her performance. They were going to take all of my father's money. I wasn't feeling a sense of crisis yet, but that time might be coming very soon. Even as I was at school taking a class peacefully, that man might already be at the house this moment threatening my father to hand over his bank books. Once I became anxious, I get more and more anxious. I could feel a big pressure on my chest as if the ceiling had collapsed on me.
いやー、平和すぎて退屈だぜ。
H-kun talks to me
そう
yawning.
かな。レナは平和で退屈なの大好きだよ。
俺はごめんだね。せめて火星人が襲来するくらいのことが、毎週とは言わないまでにも、月末くらいには欲しいところだぜ。あ、定期テストはなしでだぜ。
もし本当に火星人が攻めてきて世界中が滅ぼされてひなみ沢も焼け野原になったらケイチ君は退屈が紛れて満足かな。
いや、そこまでは言ってねえよ。何かアクシデントの一つもないと退屈で溶けちまいそうだぜって言いたかっただけだぜ。
He had no idea what I've been going through, of course. That's why he says that. I was still irritated by his insensitivity. I couldn't understand why he wouldn't be satisfied with such a peaceful life. He never has to doubt that today or tomorrow will be as fun as yesterday. I was all too aware that boring and peaceful days could be destroyed all of a sudden. I knew that boring and peaceful days could come to an end all of a sudden because your mom wanted to divorce your dad. I knew that you could feel like you didn't belong anywhere in your own house because your dad had gotten a new girlfriend. Even so, you had to repeat the same kind of day over and over again. That's why I want to live every day happily in order to be prepared when the world comes to its end.
レナは日々が幸せそうでいいよな。そういうのもスキルなのかな。
そんなの羨ましがられても困るな。
日々を退屈でなく幸せに過ごすのって何かコツでもあるのか？あるなら教えてくれよ。俺も得得してみたいぜ。
そんなの簡単だよ。気づくだけだもん。
気づくって？
There's no way he could realize it. It's probably better that he didn't, because it meant he was truly happy.
気づくだけだよ。幸せな日々が有限であることに。
The three of us walked home from school like we always did. Mi-chan said goodbye to us at the corner of the street where she took her separate way home. She walked away waving, but I chased after her.
何？
Mi-chan apparently thought she dropped something and looked around to see what she dropped.
忘れるところだった。実はね、昨日喫茶店でしーちゃんと笠井さんに会ったの。その時にね、笠井さんの落とし物を拾ったの。
Of course he hadn't dropped anything. I was lying. If I could meet with him, I'd just show him whatever, tell him I thought it was his and apologize for my mistake.
へえ、あ、そう。それありがとう。届けとくよ。
それでね、レナが直接返したいの。
Mi-chan looked surprised. I couldn't blame her. I'd met him only once. This is not what you thought when you thought Uncle Hunter. I mean, the way this game has a very specific like progression and way it works. The first 3, 4 chapters, whatever it is, of the game, and this is now we're on the 5th chapter of this game. Just started it. Has like a very like nice, happy progression, and then it slowly gets worse and worse. Also, you'll notice each chapter typically starts off during the daytime where it's nice, and everything bad happens once the sky turns orange. Once it becomes evening time, that's when everything bad truly starts to happen.
まあそりゃ構わないけど、なんでまた。
And not just that, they'll have music cues for it that are different. So if you hear the cicadas in the background now, they have they sound differently in the evening. They also in this game use different words for the morning and evening cicadas to differentiate that as well. So they have a couple different ways to differentiate when like the mood that's being set for that moment.
サングラスにおひげがね、ちょっぴり可愛かったの。はう。
I could fudge my true intentions with my cute mode. I tried it anyways. Not enough killing? I promise you there will be killing in this game. There's killing in probably all of them, I think. Michan usually takes words at their face value, and indeed she seemed to buy it. Literally in this game, we have decimated the entire village of, I mean, it's not that big, but probably like at least 1,000 people.
口ひげを引っこ抜いてお持ち帰りしちゃダメだよ。
で、その、どうかな？会え
More.
るかな？
忙しいのか暇なのか全然見当つかない人だからね。今度ひなみ沢に来る用事がないか聞いておくよ。
I needed to know when as soon as possible. Of course, I wasn't going to say I wanted to meet him today, but at least tomorrow or the day after tomorrow.
なんだよ、お前ら何やってんだ？
レナがね、新しい恋に目覚めちゃったんだってさ。
違うよ。
なんだそりゃ、面白そうな話だな。俺も混ぜろ。
I didn't want her to leave it up in the air, so I told her, I think I should give it back to him as soon as possible. I'm sure he's looking for it, too. Michan said okay twice and walked away waving. I hadn't yet thought about how I was going to ask for help when I would meet him. He seemed to be in a higher position than Rena-san and her partner. He agreed to help me. It would be very encouraging. There was a possibility that he'd tell me he didn't want to interfere in other people's private matters. You could just say the whole thing was another love triangle between a father, his daughter, and his lover.
じゃあな、レナ。また明日な。
また明日ね。
I said goodbye to Keiichi-kun and walked home alone. After Keiichi-kun was gone, everything went quiet. My head became clear. What I needed at that moment was quiet time to think about what I should do from then on. I shouldn't depend on Kasai-san to solve my problems. Most likely decline my requests, so I'll have to think about some alternatives. Probably better that I just do that. A love triangle between a father, his daughter, and his lover. Those words bother me, because I've never seen an unhappy triangle like that before. Or because I've seen an unhappy triangle like that before. That sort of thing had happened to Satoshi-kun. Satoshi-kun experienced it last year. He fought for his sister in a triangle with his aunt. It was the same situation as mine. I'm trying to fight to protect my father. Satoshi-kun fought alone. Nobody helped him. All I did for him was give him my sympathy and compassion. I didn't think I could do anything more than that. I felt sorry for him, but I didn't really help him out. Irresponsibly, I tried to cheer him up. I probably told him something that I thought would make him feel better, but that hurt him instead. I recently realized how much I hurt him with my insensitivity because Keiichi just hurt me the same way. I'm going down the same path Satoshi-kun went last year. I feel like I'm experiencing deja vu. An unusual repetition. That would mean that I'd be the one who gets demoned away this year. I should be okay. I wasn't thinking about running away from Hinamizawa. Was I? I wasn't thinking about running away from Hinamizawa, but I thought about running away from my home many times. That's why I made the place I could escape to in the garbage dump. That dump happened to be in Hinamizawa. What if it wasn't? Running there would be the same thing as running away from Hinamizawa. I shouldn't think like that. Oyashiro-sama will get mad at me. Oyashiro-sama is really scary. Geez, seizure warning on that. Saw flickering lights in my head. Oh no, every time I tried to remember that time, my mind would stop working properly. I remembered the vivid colors of my psychoactive drugs. The flickering lights and clouds started spreading in my head. They were so bright and annoying. Don't try too hard to remember. No. I couldn't stop the flickering lights in my head, but please stop them on the screen. It's not a fun time. I couldn't have that feeling. I had to fill my heart with another feeling. Yeah, there was no time for these crazy flickering lights in my head. I had to think about what I should do when Kasai-san declined my request for help. I had to protect my father from Rena-san and that bad man. Wait, why was I still calling her that? Rena is Rena. She's a bad person who deceived my father and tried to bring us unhappiness. Bad people bring bad things into the world without even doing anything. They're different from the other 90% of people who aren't bad. You let them loose, they'll even ruin the people around them. When you have one bad tangerine in a box, it spreads its fungus to the other tangerines around it. That's what bad people are like. I couldn't remember how Satoshi-kun resolved his triangle last year. But I could still see the flickering lights in my head. They're still flickering. Still flickering. What is with games making me repeat text? They're still flickering. Still flickering. Still flickering. They're still flickering. How did I know someone was going to post that? And how did I know it was going to be you, Samus's? Just as the swirl of flickering lights were making me dizzy, I saw my house. I also saw Rena-san's scooter parked by the side of the gate. But when I saw the bike, the flickering lights disappeared and I regained control of myself. Rena-san spent the night last night. She told me she had to work today in the evening, so she should be leaving soon. But I didn't want to be around her, even for a little while until she left. I said I'm home real loud, rushed into the house, pretended that my friends were waiting outside, and rushed out of the house. Rena-san stopped me.
あら、おかえり、レイナちゃん。
あ、こんにちは。
This was the first time I thought Rena-san's smile was ugly. It only stood to reason. I had realized the scheme she was hiding behind the smile.
今日ね、お父さんと一緒にお昼は5グラまで行ってきたのよ。キーマカレーがとっても美味しいお店でね。
My father poked his head up from the living room and he said, I want to go there again next time we go. I really like that curry. I wonder if he meant next time with me or with her. Anyway, I hate when Rena-san says your
そ
father.
れで、レトルトをお土産に買ってきたの。後でぜひ食べてみてね。美味しいから。レイナちゃんはこのお店知ってる？
I did know the restaurant she was talking about. I saw it in a magazine. It's a new restaurant that just opened recently. I also remember that it was an expensive restaurant. The amount of money they spent on the take-home curry alone must have been enough to cover the cost of all our dinners for several nights. Since I was aware of what was in the bank books, it's hard for me to stay
それ
calm.
は楽しみです。ありがとうございますね、リナさん。
それでね、レイナちゃん。ちょっとみんなでお話があるんだけど。
ごめんなさい。ちょっと友達を待たせてるんで出かけますね。またゴミ捨て場で宝探しなの。
レイナちゃんは宝探しが好きね。 私も今度行ってみようかしら。
ではすみません。
If we take you to the garbage dump, we're probably leaving you dead in the garbage dump. Every time Rena-san moved her arms or head, the scent of her perfume struck my nostrils. I hate the smell of her perfume, so I couldn't stay a second longer. I rushed out of the house and started running to get away from her perfume. The rubber band inside me, the one called Rena, was stretched all the way to its limit. I'm pretty sure I'd explode and go crazy if the rubber band broke. I didn't want to feel like that inside my own house. My house was supposed to be the place where I could open my heart freely. I ran away. I ran away from there. I ran farther and farther away from it because it was no longer a place I belonged. It's not that I had a destination in mind, I was just running away. I was running to escape to a place where I did belong. Didn't I decide to fight against that woman? Didn't I decide to fight against her myself or with my father? Then once I saw her fake smile, a chill ran up my back. It's like I picked up a stone, found a carpet of bugs underneath it, and put it back on the ground in a hurry. I rushed out of the house as fast as I could. Did I want to fight, or did I want to run away? Was I just choosing to spend a peaceful time at my hideout, believing that tomorrow would be the same as today? I couldn't do that. I didn't know when they'd spring their trap, and I couldn't afford to waste any time. I knew that deep down. I knew that, but I just wanted to run away. I couldn't stop myself from running away, and so I did run away. At times like this, the mattress in my hideout would feel so soft that I knew. Remember when I said they do things to change the scene? They did all three things right there. Sky color, changed. Cicada sound, changed. And now they call them the Higurashi instead of cicadas in the game. All three things happened in this one scene. Perfect example. The cries of the Higurashi were soothing to the ears. They sounded as soft as my mattress. They were like music. They didn't force any feelings upon me. They cried as if to tell me to just be who I am. It was always so quiet here that I immediately noticed the purr of an engine coming closer. People used to come here and make a lot of noise during the dam conflict, but now nobody really comes here. This is a place forgotten, so it was rare to see somebody come through here at all. I sat on the roof of an abandoned car and waited for the intruder to go away without looking their way. I do eat spinach. I prefer my spinach just raw, uncooked, but I will eat cooked spinach as well. You cook it into like a pasta dish or a soup or like a garnish on pizza. I'll eat spinach on most anything. The purr of the engine stopped. I'm not stupid. If it stopped, I know exactly who it had to be. I heard the person calling me, but I ignored it at once. The person came closer, making it harder for me to ignore her. She called my name again. I turned around this time.
Rena-san.
I mean, there's foods I don't like, but there's probably very few foods I actually would not eat. Like, I don't like pineapple or celery, but if you put it into something, like if you put, say, celery into a meatloaf, I will eat it. But if there was, say, like a vegetable tray, I won't just eat the celery by itself. Why, thank you.
レイナちゃん、結構耳遠い方？
すみません。多分逆風だったんで聞こえにくかったんだと思います。
And this is the game for voices. This game makes me read a lot of text. Actually, I had it. So I was looking this up at one point because I was trying to figure out how long are each of these games. So I actually found someone online who went into the text files of each of these games and worked out how big the file size is. But then also calculated, there's known approximations for how many words something is. And let me pull that up. Where did I put that? Here it is. It was a Reddit thread. So for example, The game we're playing right now, Tsumihoroboshi, is... What is this in kilobytes of data? So it's 1,229 kilobytes of data. Or is this in, yeah, surely this isn't megabytes. That would be huge. Yeah. Yeah, okay, there's the total in kilobytes. 1 kilobyte is approximately 120 English words. So then do the math, so then this one is approximately, what would that be? Just shy of 1.5 million words. Now, probably, I would say half of that is voiced, but I'm still probably, throughout this playthrough, reading 750,000 words. She seemed to buy my poor excuse. She smiled and said, "Yeah, it happens sometimes."
一人お友達は
一人で遊んでますよ。
ふーん、その年でなかなか渋いわね。
The son stretched and looked across the huge garbage
しか
dump.
し、よくもこれだけ盛大にスクラップばっか捨てたもんよね。知ってる？昔、平坂の2丁目にもタイヤの外れた車ばっかり積んであるところがあってね。
I wasn't interested in Rena-san's old story, but I pretended to listen and nodded. She doesn't take this road to go back to Okonomiya. I guess she knew I'd be here and came by to see me. What did she want? It was obvious that she was just trying to make conversation. She probably took it personally when I avoided her earlier, which must be why she was here to butter me up. It would be better for her not to have any conflicts with the daughter of the man she was seeing, no matter what the intention of seeing him is. In that sense, it was a reasonable action for her to take. While I listened to her old story, all I could think about was when she was going to leave. Didn't I have to fight against her? Didn't I decide to fight against her? Didn't I find out her plot at the coffee shop in Okonomiya? Didn't I find out that this woman is squeezing money out of my father when I looked inside his cash box? I know who you are. Please leave my father alone. How easy it would be if those 2 sentences could solve the problem. She'd probably deny it. Even if I told her about what I heard at the coffee shop, I have no evidence of her plot. She said that she did it because the vulgar man was threatening her. There would be nothing I could do. But I know this woman is a bad person. I know something horrible will happen in the near future if I waste time like this. A strange, tense feeling started coming over me. But I didn't know how to let it out. As the feeling started running high, I became unable to stand the smell of her perfume. I wanted to put a certain distance between me and her, so I climbed down the slope of the scrap heap. I kept going down and down the slopes of the garbage dump. When I turned around, I saw her coming down as well, muttering. Was she following me? In order to run away from her, I started running down the slope all the way to the bottom, and around behind some trash piles, and arrived at the front of my hideout. My escape was meaningless. Not only was she going to catch up with me eventually, all I did was let her know the way to my hideout that nobody's supposed to know about. I wanted to make sure she never saw my precious hideout. I was about to leave, but then she appeared.
へえ、ちょっと素敵よね。秘密基地みたい。
I'm actually surprised I have different artwork for
私
this.
だけの秘密の隠れ家なんですよ。ここには誰も来ないし、誰にも何も聞こえません。
I felt strange hearing myself say that.
レイナちゃんだけの秘密の隠れ家嬉しいわね。そんな場所に連れてき
We
ても
didn't
らえ
invite
る
you
なん
here,
て
you just followed us. She must have thought I told her my secret because she was worth sharing it with. She looked happy. She found the station wagon, looked inside of it through the window, and went all ooh and ah excitedly. Your PR got merged? Wonderful. I'm always happy when people update readmes. Literally earlier this afternoon, I was helping some coworkers because they were trying to set up for a project that we haven't really been working on in a while because the client just wasn't around, and their whole team got COVID and was out for a while. And they were trying to get set up, and you know, you have to like set up your API in your local database, all that kind of stuff. And the database migrations were so old that they didn't work on modern versions of SQL for a little bit. We sorted that out. Oh no, sorry, that wasn't the reason. We thought that was the reason, but it was missing environment variables. And then we realized that one of the migration scripts had got merged in was incorrect. It was referencing a column that got changed as part of like a PR comment on that, but no one had updated the migration scripts. So that was what was failing. So yeah, updating your documentation, including your readmes, always great. Nothing's more annoying than being told like, oh, just read the readme to set up a project, and then it doesn't work. Geez, why are you talking like a SpongeBob meme? This is a secret place that nobody else knows. I felt like my consciousness was separating from my body, like I was floating. But it didn't feel good. Like when I drink amazake. It's more like being car sick. Felt like I was going to throw up. My brain was probably secreting some chemical in order to avoid facing the reality. I have to stay with this woman, that I couldn't run away from her. Even if my brain tried to avoid recognizing it, the reality in front of me wouldn't change.
そうそう。ねえ、レイナちゃん。
なんでしょう。
どうしたの？気分悪いの？
いえ、平気です。
I inhaled fresh air and pulled my consciousness back to reality. I didn't feel like throwing up anymore, but I still felt off balance. I leaned onto a scrap of garbage to keep my balance.
私はレイナちゃんのこと好きよ。レイナちゃんは私のこと好き？
何ですか突然。
I said that because I didn't want to say I like
私
her.
ね、ずっとあなたのお父さんとお付き合いをしているんだけど、いろいろと話し合ってね。
You guys have been together for less than a year. I needed to stop feeling like this. Get up, Rena. I'd heard something like this before. Part of me was trying to understand what this woman was trying to say, but another part of me was trying not to. I felt as if her words were bouncing around in my head, and I started having a headache.
それでね、これからのことを真剣に話し合ったのよ。これからの生活やいろいろよ。
What?
レイナも秋人おじさんのこと好きでしょ？それでね、お母さん。
What's going on? Mother? What are you thinking about, Rena Ryugu? This is an important moment. You're about to have a one-on-one battle with Rena-san. No, Mom. What about my dad? What about me? I don't want you to divorce him. I don't want you to get remarried to anybody else. No, please don't divorce him. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not going to let you get remarried.
再婚なんて許さないです。
え？
お父さんとどういう付き合い方をしたって構いませんが、再婚なんて許さないです。
She must have not thought that I'd say it straight out like that. She looked stunned. After a while, she broke the silence with her laughter.
拒絶もあるかなとは思ってたけど、ここまではっきり言われるとは思わなかったもんだから。
拒絶もあるかなと思っていました。私が拒絶していたのに気づいていたのは意外でした。
そんなのわかるでしょ。あんた、私と目を合わせるとすぐ逃げるもん。それで分かってないなんて思ってた？子供は嫌ね。
She frowned, revealing her ugly self. It should have been the first time I saw her face like that, but I wasn't surprised at all. Her face had looked like that to me from the
で
beginning.
きれば上辺だけでもあんたとは仲良くしてたかったんだけど、ここまで嫌われちゃ難しいわね。私のどこが気に入んないの？工学のために教えてよ。
最初から。
This is a good background track. It's unsettling, it's unnerving. You can feel like there's an impending danger and doom coming in.
匂いも嫌い。
One vicious word came out of my mouth after another. I didn't have wings, but I felt as if I was flying up to the sky. I felt weird and uncomfortable, but also exhilarated. I felt as if I was letting another me use my body. I was in the middle of a disastrous battlefield. I felt like it wasn't even my
そ
business.
りゃあ好都合ね。私もあんたのこと嫌いだったからお互い様よね。なめんなクソガキ。ガタガタ言わされてえか。
二度と家へ来ないでください。再婚なんて私が絶対に許さない。
別にあんたに許してもらわなくてもいいんだけど、まああんたがうまく立ち回ってお父さんに再婚を断念させたきゃさせてごらんって。そんなの今さら意味ないし。
She didn't look intimidated by me at all. That made me feel a little intimidated in return. Why was she so confident of her absolute control over my father? She had to have more than confidence to be able to act as fearless as this. She must have something tangible. Or I asked her what it was, she told me herself.
私ね、プロポーズされたの。
嘘だ。
嘘じゃないわよ。本当よ。
It's a lie, it's a lie, it's a big lie. She asked a divorce because she got pregnant? She has to get married because she got pregnant? It's a lie, it's a big lie.
向こうからのお願いだから聞かないわけにもいかないしね。指輪ももらっちゃったし、それに結婚を前提のお付き合いだったわけだしね。指輪まで送っておいて今さらちゃぶ台返しなんてことになると最近は問題が多いわよね。
それが最初から目的のくせに。私は聞いてるんだ。お前と鉄という男が二人で喫茶店で話しているところを聞いてるんだ。お父さんのお金を目当てに近づいたのを知っている。ひなみ沢の旦那と呼んで詐欺にかけようとしていることを知ってる。葛西さんに聞いたから全部知ってるんだ。詐欺師だってことも全部知ってるんだ。
あら、全部知ってるんだ。あらららららら。
Before I knew it, Rena was standing right in front of me. We glared at each other with our faces almost touching.
で、レイナちゃんはそこまで知っててどうしようってわけ？
お父さんに二度と近づかないでください。
嫌よって言ったらこんな秘密の隠れ家に誘ってくれての話だからね。そういうお話かなとは思ってたのよ。だってここ秘密の隠れ家なんでしょ。誰も知らなくて誰にも何も聞こえない秘密の場所なんでしょ。
ええ、そうですよ。誰も知らなくて誰にも何も聞こえない、誰も訪れることのない忘れられた場所。
Our faces were so close to each other that our noses could almost touch. I knew what I was talking about, but I didn't know what would happen next. I couldn't back down now that I'd come to this point, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I should do.
いやだ、何をマジになってんだかね。ほらほら、仲直り。
Rena started laughing and slapped me on the back. My expression didn't change, and I kept staring at Rena. But I didn't notice her real intention of putting both her arms around my neck. Tension broke, all stretched thin, and Rena squeezed my neck hard. I was openly hostile, but I didn't realize Rena's evil intentions until she started choking me. I'm just going to throw out another trigger warning here, because we're actively about to have a scuffle including choking a minor. Not for everyone, so this is your warning. There's definitely going to be some violence happening now, including violence against a minor.
こ 子供のくせに舐めやがってよ。
I will say the color changing on this as like our vision's like fading and going like bloodshot is well
もうちょ
done.
いでうん千万って金が転がるんだよ。上辺だけでも仲良しってことになってりゃ小遣いも少しもやろうって思ってたのにな。口ばっかり滑らしかうんだらねえとこでまだるっこし血にさらせやこら。
I tried to pry her hands off my neck, but I didn't have the strength to do so.
殺しはしたかなかったんだけどね。二度とこんなうまいかもにゃ会えないだろうしさ。てめえ閉めてうん千万なら悪くはないさね。どうせ巻き上げたら蒸発するつもりだったしさ。上等くれたらこの野郎。
The world around me got darker and darker. I'd never known an evil intention like this, namely the intention to kill me. It didn't scare me, though. That's because being scared is a feeling that people use to express how they feel when they see a wildfire on the other side of a river. People on the island see the wildfire, with their deaths right in front of them. They don't get scared. If I loosened my grip on her hands even a little, she'd crush my throat. This was a simple competition to see who was stronger. Rena wanted to get into the most advantageous position, so she tried to push me down onto the ground so that she could mount me. If I let her do that, I wouldn't stand a chance. I tried to keep my current position, but I was also losing a lot of energy by being choked. It was only a matter of time before Rena could push me down. But I'd lost my balance and purpose. I tried to fall backwards in order to put her off balance. I couldn't hold my breath long enough to keep up that strength competition, so I had no choice but to take that chance. We fell on the ground, tangled together. But as Rena was strongly determined to kill me, she didn't even take her hands away from my neck after she fell. However, my actions made Rena loosen her grip on my throat. It wasn't loose enough for me to break free from her grip, but it gave me a few moments to use my hands for something other than stopping her from crushing my throat. If I hadn't taken the chance, I would have been done for. That's why I tried to literally seize my chance, move both my hands onto the ground. Seize that chance. I felt a piece of broken glass on my right hand. That was truly my chance to literally save myself from the brink of death. I cut Rena's wrist deep with the piece of glass. Rena tried to endure the pain for a few seconds, but pain that severe from someone so cornered soon broke her will. She let go of my throat to cling to her bloody wrist. I used that moment to roll away from her. She screamed, both in pain and also to try and intimidate me again. It didn't work anymore, though. Intimidation only works on the opponent when the opponent is hesitant to fight. When you're already in a fight, screaming like that means nothing more than to let the opponent know how badly you're hurt. I no longer had any hesitation. I'd learned from Rena. She taught me what I have to do in a situation like this. That's right, this is my secret hideout. I know every single piece of junk in here. Maybe I knew that a day like this was coming. Was it just a coincidence that it was there? I pulled out a meter-long lead pipe, not at all surprised to see it there. I raised it up high and brought it back down. There was no way Rena could block this hard and heavy lead pipe with just her arms. She probably tried to block it with the palms of her hands in order to take it from me, but her long nails wouldn't let that happen. Unable to catch it the way she wanted, she broke her nails, and some of her nails came off too. Her scream made me realize that I had the advantage I would have to keep. If I didn't, she turned the tables just like I did, and then she choked me to death for sure. Rena shielded her head with her arms, but it didn't help. All that would change is that I'd break her arms before I broke her face. I'm serious too. Die, die, die. You should die. Yeah, that's right. I should have done this a long time ago. I didn't need proof. I didn't have to talk to anybody. That's stupid. That's nonsense. I should have done this a long time ago. If I'd done it a long time ago, my father wouldn't have been deceived. I could have protected him. I could have protected my family. I could have protected my life. I could have been myself. My mother wouldn't have divorced my father. I could have stayed happy. I wouldn't have had to be unhappy. So I'm going to recapture my happiness at this moment. I'm going to win back my happiness. I'm not going to cry for misfortune. I'm not going to give in to a fate of unhappiness. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to seize my happiness right now. With my own two hands. Rena tried to run away from me. As she no longer had the use of her hands, it made it difficult for her to stand up to escape, especially since there were scraps of junk everywhere on the ground. After all, this is my hideout. This is my territory. Nobody can run away from me here. She tried to climb up the slope of garbage, slipped, fell, and rolled all the way back down. She didn't stand up or move. Her eyes were open, and her neck was bent at an unnatural angle. I didn't know how to make sure she was dead, so I kept looking at her opened eyes for a while. She could be faking it for all I know. But she didn't close her eyes no matter how long I waited. I scooped up a handful of sand and threw it on her face. She still didn't close her eyes. The lead pipe slipped out of my hand and hit the ground. When I tried to pick it up, I realized how heavy it was, surprised that I was wielding it as though it was a knife. I was sweating all over. The cold wind felt good on my skin. The cries of the Higurashi were calming down and healing my soul. Rena was just like a broken dummy now. She'd become a piece of junk. I am the owner of this land of junk. I've defended it from her intrusion. Now she was a resident of this junkyard. I didn't feel bad about killing her. In fact, I felt rather fulfilled that I defeated the evil woman who had deceived my father. I started breathing slowly and calmly. I regained enough energy to analyze the situation. I'd have to hide her body. First, I had to get rid of her scooter. I climbed up the slope and kicked her scooter down the hill. It rolled down the slope, making a lot of noise, and blended in with all the junk as it stopped, like it was there from the beginning. Went back down the slope and started dragging her body to my hideout. It should have taken as much effort as dragging a 50-kilogram sandbag, but it felt lighter than that. It was just a sandbag, and yet it brought disaster to my family. I didn't lure her here in order to kill her. Or did I? Maybe I just didn't notice that I had that intention deep down in my heart. Even so, I felt like this was the best, most expedient solution. There was no better solution than killing her. How wasteful to depend on someone to help me. Wait for the day to come when they will. I remembered the murder of Sadoshikin's aunt that happened last year. I had no doubt that Sadoshikin murdered her. But I'd never been as convinced as I am right at this moment. How could he have saved Sadako-chan, other than by killing his aunt last year at that time in that circumstance? My situation was much the same as his. How could I have saved my father other than by killing her? If I was planning a murder, I would have been under a lot of pressure and stress. But for better or for worse, the moment came to me out of nowhere. That's why I believed I solved my problem with as little trouble as possible. Now that she's gone, anyone become suspicious about her disappearance? She was an irresponsible person who skipped work at her own convenience, so I didn't think anybody would get suspicious when she'd disappear one day. She was a big mess from the start. People will think she went into hiding because she got into deep trouble with someone. I didn't need to fabricate an alibi. All I needed to do was get rid of her body. It took me a while to figure out how to do that last part. Hiding her body would be very risky. But my brain had become so calm that it did some calculations and came up with an answer right away. Yes, this place is still the safest. This is a place forgotten. Nobody comes here. Nobody knows this place is here. I knew that because I'd been spending a lot of time here. Compared to the risk of carrying her body to some other place, it was a lot safer just to hide it here. But it wasn't perfect yet. This place wouldn't remain a secret forever. I could hide it now, but I'd have to come up with a perfect way to make it completely disappear. It's a lot easier to think about that than think about how to make Rena break up with my father. I stuffed her corpse into a broken refrigerator in a trash pile. I wanted to cover the refrigerator with dirt and bury it, but that was too easy. I had to chop the corpse into pieces and make them disappear completely. I felt like it got dark all of a sudden. No, it didn't get dark all of a sudden. I just didn't realize. It was getting dark until just then. I could hear the thunder from a distance. It might rain soon. I could use some rain. It'd wash Rena's dirty blood into the ground. I should go home. I should think about what I'd do tomorrow. I was going to stay right beside my father until he forgets about her. He might be hurt at first, but we're going to recapture our happiness for sure. Our happy, peaceful life. My body was heavy with exhaustion, but I also felt fulfilled because I took a very important first step today. I'll keep taking one step after another. I'm not going to cry anymore. I'm not going to cry until I win back my happiness. I'm not going to cry again. Well, hero, you wanted murder? We got murder. That was the first thing I said after I got home. My father looked stunned. He noticed the sad tone in my voice and realized I didn't agree with the idea of his remarriage, and he looked down.
無理もないよな。レイナの気持ちもわかるよ。事前にレイナにもよく相談。
プロポーズなんて取り消せばいい。
あんな女なんて言い方しちゃダメだ。リナさんは
本当のことを話す。
Why do you hate this,
あの女
Samuses?
という男は二人組の悪人。我が家の財産を狙ってお父さんに近づいてきただけ。
My father didn't get it right away, of course. He looked upset and said because I called her that woman. I should have chosen my words a little more carefully, but I think I told him the truth clearly enough. I feel like you have horrible luck with seeds, Samus. I don't think I've ever had you do a randomizer in the background of one of my streams for you to be like, this was a good seed. I'm happy with this seed. I told him everything I heard and saw at the coffee house. As I expected, he defended Rena anyway. I was upset, but at the same time it made me certain that there was no other way than to kill her. I felt the pressure on my shoulders lessen for some reason. My father thought he needed my approval for his remarriage, so he held back his anger and put a fake smile on his face instead. So Sam says what you should do is generate a bunch of random seeds when you're alone, and then you can play them throughout the day. I don't know if that's going to work, but... A tamed animal is still tamed, even after the owner is dead. That's okay. It works retroactively. So to test this theory, replay this seed when you're alone later and see if it's suddenly as easy. Screw off fly. Even a tamed animal will notice one day that he's no longer in captivity. It's not something I could teach him. He had to realize it on his own. I couldn't stand his fake smile anymore, so I left the living room. Time healed the pain from the divorce. Time heals any kind of pain, just like how dripping water will eventually bore a hole through solid rock. I did what I could do. Now I have to wait. But the day I was going to wait for came earlier than I expected. At midnight of the following day, we had a visitor. It was that Techan man. This should have been the fight music, jeez. Teppy Hojo. Teppy didn't even knock on the door to get in. He broke into the house by smashing the window. At first, I thought he came here to ask us about Rena's whereabouts, but I was wrong. The real reason why Teppy came here was because it was their plan. It was the last stage of their Badger game. Rena was probably supposed to be in bed with my father at that time tonight. Teppy must have wanted to show up and catch them sleeping together. Teppy looked around the house, but he couldn't find Rena. He didn't change the plan though. He grabbed my father by his collar and started yelling threats. He showed my father a certificate of marriage to Rena and shouted at him saying, "You got my wife pregnant? How are you going to take responsibility?" My father had no idea she was married. He looked shocked. My father is a short guy who is faint of heart. Just let Teppy do and say whatever he wanted from beginning to end. I looked at them from a distance coldly. The more Teppy yelled and threatened my father, the faster he'd wake up from his bad dream. This was a medicine for him. Teppy was cutting out the cancer that I was going to depend on time to do. He was doing a great job of it. I waited to help my father until I was sure that he had finally awakened from his bad dream. I told Teppy I had something very important to tell him and took him outside.
なんじゃい重要な話っちゅうんは。
リナさんって昨日以来沖宮に帰ってますか？
ん？
実はリナさん事情があって隠れてるんです。
あ？どういうこっちゃん？
リナさんから哲平さんが来たら連れてきてほしいと言われてるんです。
ああ？律子のやつどうしたんね？
Teppy followed me without hesitation. We walked in the dark with a flashlight. The place where nobody comes, and nobody can hear us. The place forgotten. He asked me many things in the way, but I couldn't answer any of them. I just told him to ask Rena. The way I said it seemed to make him think that Rena was going to betray him and get married to my father for real. Even though he was breathing heavily in a rage, he walked right behind me without any suspicions. I knew this day was going to come very soon, so I was well prepared for it. We reached the place where I originally planned to bring him. Turn off the flashlight all of a sudden.
どうしたんね？
Everyone gets nervous when the only light in the dark goes off. Thank you for the hydrate. But this is my territory. I didn't need any light. I could feel my surroundings even better with my eyes closed. I grabbed the big hatchet I'd hidden in a bush and lifted it up high.
電池の接触不良かな。ちょっと待ってくださいね。
ああ、はよせんとね。
I purposely sounded weak and helpless, while I raised the hatchet into the air.
ライターあるわ。出すんね。
Teppy found a lighter in his pocket and lit it up. He probably couldn't understand the sight illuminated by that small light. He saw a girl lifting up a big hatchet right in front of him.
Huh? Oh.
Teppy's eyes went wide. He didn't understand what was going on, but he understood that his life was in danger. And yet, he must not have been able to think fast enough to deal with it, even though he understood what he should do. Even if he could think fast enough and blocked his head with his arms, it wouldn't have meant anything. I knew that Teppy would come to my house eventually. That's why I prepared for that day. I just didn't think that preparation was going to bear fruit tonight. I chose my weapon very carefully. I planned when and where and how I was going to attack him, and so there can be only one result. The hatchet cut deeply into his forehead. I felt an indescribable vibration throughout the hatchet when it hit him. And this told me that I broke his skull. He bragged about how good he was at fighting at the coffee house, but he sure went down quickly when faced with a murderous weapon. He was done in by a single blow. Teppy slowly fell to his side with the hatchet in his forehead. He looked like a victim in a B-movie. Not the B-movie, although that would be terrifying if it had murder. I killed this big guy with just one hatchet. He was probably quite experienced in the world of violence, but I was better than him when it came to killing. Why? Because I've killed someone before. It's all done now. The bad people who deceived my father and tried to rob him blind are all gone. I did what I had to do in order to protect my life. If I had this much courage and determination when my mom told me about the divorce, I might have killed Akihito. If I did, it would have taken the life of only one. Because I couldn't do it back then, I've had to kill 2 people in the last 2 days. Rena, finish it up. There's already a place to hide his body. I took care of everything. My hands were wet, so I shone the flashlight at them. I thought it was blood, but it was just sweat. Even so, I still felt uncomfortable and shone the flashlight at my hands several times. I did all this in order to be happy. I did all this so I should be happy now. I tried so hard that I got blood on my hands. I wanted to get credit for that from him. Wait, Shirasama, let me ask you a question. Can I finally rewind the time back to the day everything started to go wrong? Can I? I'm gonna stay in Hinamizawa, and to live happily. My father forever. It's rare to see Rena sleep in class. She isn't the kind of girl who sleeps in class because of staying up so late. She had to be tired from doing housework or something. Everybody seemed to be thinking the same thing. Nobody tried to wake her up, not even Chie-sensei. She got up for a few seconds and went back to sleep. She swayed back and forth like she was rowing a boat. But she's in class, so I should wake her up, right? I was about to wake her up, but before my hand touched her, Mion gave me a sign not to.
寝かせてあげなよ。たまにはそういう日もあるよ。
うん。それもそうだな。
I heard a few days ago that Rena lives with her father. She studies during the day, plays a lot after school, and does things around the house after that. I didn't know that. I also didn't know that her mother had divorced her father. Mion told me that, but she also told me not to talk about it because Rena is still hurt by the divorce.
そんな苦労をしてるなんて全然気づきもしなかったぜ。
レナはそういうのを表に出さないタイプだよね。ひょっとすると普段陽気に振る舞っているのもそういう風に意識して振る舞っているからかもね。
Rena told me that happy days will one day come to an end. She told me that firsthand. What could she have been through? I had no idea. Probably why she tried to spend as much time as peacefully and cheerfully as she could. I must have hurt her feelings when I said I was bored of having happy days. When I thought about it, I felt bad for living off my parents who are both healthy and happy. For that matter, Sadako and Rika-chan lost their parents too. Mion lives with her grandmother away from her parents because she needs to learn to be the head of the Sonozaki family in the future. When I realized all that, I felt bad about my situation.
別にケイちゃんが両親と生活してることを申し訳なく思うことはないよ。
Mion seemed to have read my mind. She said it with a cool expression on her face.
確かに家族ってのは生まれてきた子供である私たちにとって一番最初のコミュニティなんだと思う。でもね、コミュニティは家族だけじゃないんだよ。
Literally, she says it's the most common family, but it's not the only family we
仲
have.
間か。
分かってるじゃん。
俺たちはレナにとって家族に負けないくらいの存在なんだろうか。
掃除洗濯、炊事に買い物。それに疲れて昼寝だけして過ごすことだってレナにはできるんだよ。でもレナはそれをしない。放課後の時間いっぱいを私たちと部活をして過ごす。それはつまりなんて言えばいいのかな。そう、仲間ってことなんだよ。
レナにとっては家族と同じくらいの意味のある仲間ってことなのか。
Mion looked stunned, as if she didn't understand what I was talking about.
ああ、ケイちゃんが今日まで仲間って言葉をどういう意味で使ってきたか知らないけどさ、仲間ってのは家族と全く同格じゃないのかな。
Also, something that's lost here in translation is Mion there's multiple words for friends, and she's distinguished like normal friends with like almost comrades. So she's saying like your comrades, your best friends are important, like as important as your family, that they're basically a second family.
難しく考えることではないのですよ。
Rika-chan joined our conversation.
居場所があればいいのです。それがある場所を家族と言ったり仲間と言ったり呼び方が少し変わるだけのことなのですよ。
リカちゃんにとって家族と仲間は同じものか。
僕はそうだと思っていますです。サトコもミーもそしてレナもそうだと思いますですよ。
だから私たちは いつも一緒にいようとするんじゃないかな。
リカちゃんはみんなといると寂しくないか？
みんなは家族なのです。寂しくなんかないのですよ。
Mion nodded in agreement. Sadako was talking to other classmates, but I'm sure she would nod as well. Rena would too.
ちょっと恥ずかしいよ。
ん？
今日まで俺、仲間って言葉を使ってきたけどさ、本当の意味で理解してなかったと思う。仲間ってのは、もっともっと大切で、かけがえのない、すげえもんなんだよな。
それ、すっごく当たり前のことだからさ。もし今日まで分かってなかったなら、よく胸に刻んだ方がいいよ。
そうだな。そうするぜ。
あと、それを二度と口にしない方がいいかもだね。今、ケイちゃん、かなり恥ずかしいこと言ってたと思うよ。
After all that, Mion still made fun of me. I think I understand a little better why Rena is always so serious about having fun. I want to be her best friend. I want to do my best to be deserving of her effort. Rena snored, and it sounded cute. GA-sensei let her sleep in class, but she couldn't let her get away with snoring.
委員長、竜宮さんを起こしてください。レーナ、ほらほら。
Rena was still half asleep and made a strange noise. Everybody in the class laughed. Rena noticed they were laughing at her, woke up right away and acted like she wasn't sleeping at all. It looked really funny and I burst into a fit of laughter. Outside the window, the sky was blue. Clouds were pure white. It was still June, but it looked like the middle of summer. But this perfect weather wouldn't last forever. It'd get cloudy and rain all of a sudden. That's why we had to play and raise a ruckus while we still had this perfect weather. The cries of the cicadas sound as if they're laughing at us because we still have some classes left. Damn it, I can't wait for school to finish.
どうしたんだろう。ケイチくんすっごく嬉しそうだね。
別に今日何かあるわけじゃないぜ。今日は今日だし、明日は明日だろ。今日が晴れてるならそれで十分。明日の天気なんか知ったこっちゃないってことさ。だから今日という日を俺は精一杯遊び倒したい。いつ天気が崩れたって後悔しないくらいに徹底的にな。
I learned that from Rena. I learned that peaceful days are the happiest days you can have, and that they're irreplaceable.
ミオ、今日の部活はなんだ？それに最近罰ゲームがちょいと刺激不足だぜ。
言うね、ケイちゃん。そこまで言うなら、今日の放課後には生き地獄ってやつを拝ましてあげるよ。
ケイチくん、あんまりみーちゃんを挑発しちゃダメだよ。
おいおい、臆すのかよ、レナ。上等じゃないかよ。また俺たちの実力で大暴れしてやろうぜ。俺とレナの決着だってまだまだついちゃいないんだからな。
I grinned at her and she grinned back.
それもそうだね。よーし、レナも思いっきり頑張るぞ。レナさんには先日の借りがございますものね。きっちり倍返しさせていただきましてですわよ。
いいね、いいね。盛り上がってきたよ。
早く放課後になるといいのです。
I couldn't wait either, but the time we just spent talking together was also very precious.
早く放課後になるといいな。
All right. So we've got one new tip called My Favorite Wine. Sadako went to join the children playing in the schoolyard. Since I didn't feel like going, I decided to stay at home. Most likely, she wouldn't be back until the evening. When Sadako wasn't around, I had ways of spending time without her. Besides, that was what I wanted to do anyway. I stuck my hand deep inside the pile of winter futons in the closet and pulled one out. Next, I filled a stylish-looking glass with ice. The ice made in the freezer smelled of chlorine, though, and it didn't taste good. Store-bought ice would be the best. Since Sadako kept asking me what I was using it for, I stopped buying it. It might be worth spending time to think about a good excuse for that. It meant I'd be able to enjoy ice without ever again smelling the chlorine. I filled the glass with mineral water, then poured a little bit of another liquid into the glass. Watching the color mix into the transparent water was a very pleasant thing. This wasn't the right way to drink it, but I liked it that way. I didn't want to hear any complaints. My body isn't very convenient because I can get drunk with only a tiny amount. That's why I dilute the small amount with a full glass of water. And thanks to that, I can enjoy a single bottle for a long time. It wasn't bad if you thought about it like that. I put a cushion on my favorite spot by the window. With the glass in one hand, I enjoyed the familiar view and the soft wind brushing through my hair. A slightly sweet, ripened aroma tickled my nose. And just when I was about to start enjoying that atmosphere, the annoying one came back. She didn't like this habit of mine and complained every time I tilted the glass. She started nagging me noisily.
少しくらい我慢なさい。何を飲もうと食おうと、私の勝手でしょ。
ダメなのです。その飲み物はあなたにはまだ早いのです。
I tried to ignore her, but she started making a fuss, as if trying to ruin the atmosphere on purpose. There was no way I could enjoy getting drunk like this. I glared at her and threw the drink out the
なんで
window.
私が憂鬱か知りたい？私の死に方が決まったからよ。
It seemed like she finally understood why I wanted to drown
そ
myself
ん
in
なに落ち込
alcohol.
まなくてもいいのよ。割と一瞬で死ねるから、そんなに怖くないわ。
My body will be burned and cut into pieces, but I'll be able to die instantly.
でも、またダメなのです。
そうね。またダメね。これだと、私の命日はいつだっけ
？6月の25日の夜だと思いましたです。
綿流しの祭りが終わってからだいたい1週間後か。
やっぱり僕のせいなのでしょうか？
決まってるでしょ。あんた自覚ないの？はうはう。
She was the one who asked me and yet cried when I told her that she was right. Geez, she's always so
頑張り
annoying.
ましょう。次のすごろくではきっと6が立て続けに出てくれることもあるわよ。
June 25th. I still had 10 more days. I was going to relax and enjoy those 10 days. Still had some wine left, too. All right. With that, we'll continue on. I don't think we'll get through this whole chapter because that last one was fairly long. I was expecting it to end after we killed Tepi, but it continued on for basically like another day. Actually, I expected it to end after we killed Rena, but then it continued. So we'll keep going until we get to a natural stopping point in about half an hour. And we're back to being Rena. It had been very hot for the past few days, and the corpses went rotten quickly. Any housewife knows how fast fresh meat can go bad. I know that too. That's why the first thing I did was to dismember the corpses. There was only one reason why I needed to dismember them. I had to reduce them to a portable size in order to carry them to a place where they'll never be found. When men see the word dismembered corpses, they'll probably feel disgusted because they don't cook. Housewives are used to taking the guts out of a fish, and they sometimes even see living maggots. They take the maggots off the food or even cook it with the maggots still on. The heat will kill them after all. Women don't tell men what they do in the kitchen because men wouldn't eat the food if they knew. Didn't really bother me much to dismember them. I was released from all my problems by killing them. Cleaning up the mess was like nothing to me because I got freedom and regained my happiness. I dismembered the corpses using carpenter tools like a saw and a hatchet. I'm wearing a black sweatsuit I bought for the day because I thought I might get stained with blood. Blood stains don't show up on black fabric, and I can just throw it away after it's done. I brought a plastic sheet I found in the dump because I thought the blood might spread otherwise. Rather than work on the sheet, I could just burn it after I was done. In the end, dismembering human bodies is no different from preparing food on a chopping board. I was very tired from chopping apart 2 adult bodies, but I didn't have a problem doing it. I cut off their arms, legs, and heads, dividing each body into 6 pieces. I'd heard before that blades get easily ruined by fat when you cut apart a corpse, so I brought many kinds of tools. I play weird things. Yeah, I will agree with you on this. And yet, this series is still my favorite series of all time. I know it's very dark. I know it is not for everyone. That there's a lot of stuff in here that just people can't always deal with. But like in the middle of that, I think it does so many things right. Even for like I'll go back to it because it's my favorite example for it. The scenes with child abuse, I'd been trained to recognize child abuse when I worked with kids. When the writer made this, they did their homework. I've still yet to see anything truly come close to this. And like, I know they're touching very sensitive topics, but I know by looking at it that they have done their homework on what a victim feels like, acts like, how they react, and all this kind of stuff. And I think because it's so real is one of the reasons why people understandably can't always deal with it, because it can get way too close to personal life. But speaking of that, Samus's, I do have plans to, at some point, switch it up and do like 1 day of visual novels and 1 day of JRPGs. So that might be coming up soon. I was right, I didn't have to go back and forth between here to my house to get another tool in the middle of work. What about Metroid? I've played a couple Metroids, and I will say, Samus, growing up, I had an original NES. I tried playing the original Metroid and didn't beat it, and it was only because of meeting you that I actually did go back and beat it. And same with Super Metroid. I got that when it came out on that Wii Digital store, and played it for a bit. And it was only after meeting you that I went to go back and beat that one as well. And they are pretty good games. I haven't played anything other than that one DS demo that I know we've talked about. We figured out what one it was, and I can't remember it anymore. Metroid Planets is Nestroid, but playable. Okay. I do actually have a fairly... there you go. I do actually have a fairly large backlog of games to play right now. Currently on my list, just like off screen, like if I played a Metroid game, it would be one I'd play off stream. Currently I've been playing East Memories of Celceta. That's been my main game. Sometimes I've been playing Tales of Symphonia. It has a non-canon ending that I've been playing off stream. I recently played Frostpunk. I won that one in a contest, and that was a pretty decent game. I played through that quite a bit. And because there's someone here who likes to steal birthdays who gifted me Duck Souls is on my list of games to play offline. And then with my work colleagues. We've been doing like a lot of like Phasmo and Pacify, and not so much Pacify, but Devour. It took us like 3 weekends, but we finally beat the first Devour map. But recently we've been playing Escape Simulator. If you like escape rooms or like those kinds of like logic puzzles to like break out of a room or a location, Escape Simulator is what we've been playing. It has like both the like developer made maps, but also is a very large community that can make escape rooms. I checked. I would recommend it. It was on sale fairly recently. It was only on sale like 20% off, but we all picked it up to play it together. But the most important thing is it has like a large community of people making workshop content for it. So we played one workshop one the other day that was highly rated, and it was very good. It was actually just like being in an escape room. And we plan to play. There's one. I saw they put out like a list of the top ones for each month. So I saw the top list for January, and at the top of it was like an escape from Dracula's castle. So we're planning on trying that this weekend. But yeah, it's the recommended is like 2 to 3 people. If you get more than 3 people, sometimes some of the like rooms are very small. But I'd highly recommend it. I would say it's akin to Hat in Time, that kind of like community for putting out content. Maybe not quite as drastic. Hat in Time is a fantastic workshop community, putting together a lot of stuff, but Escape Simulator had over 2,000 escape rooms when I checked about a month ago. I think it was sitting around 2,250 escape rooms. Of course, all of those can't be good, but even if you say 10-20% of those are like amazing and like a third of them are really good, there's how much? Like 10% would be just over 200, 250. So 20%, over 500 good escape rooms, and they'd probably take, I would say, another, depends how fast you are. The goal time for most of them is supposed to be you can play them in about 15-20 minute chunks. So yeah, there's a good amount of time you can put into that. Yeah, those are the kinds of things I've been sort of playing offline right now. Now back to dismembering bodies. A long time ago, the construction manager was murdered, and his body was dismembered here during the dam conflict. He was cut into 6 pieces in the same way. Well, I had 2 bodies, so there was double that, though. I remember the main suspect was still on the loose, and the victim's arm he hid hadn't been found yet. I wonder where he hid it. I'd like to ask him, I smiled wryly. Unlike the arms, legs, and heads, the torsos were difficult to take care of. I thought about cutting them into smaller pieces, but I decided against it because I thought it'd be troublesome to clean up the guts. I put each piece into a black trash bag and sprayed on a lot of deodorant. I wasn't sure if that would help against the smell, though. Many bugs flew around me while I was dismembering the corpses. After I finished putting all the pieces into each bag, the bugs were still flying around, but that was just because they could smell the blood. After I cleaned up everything, they were all gone. Now all I needed to do was to get rid of these 12 black bags. Burning them would be easiest, but I don't think I can burn them to ash without using a cremator. The best way is to bury them somewhere. Other than the torsos, every piece is small enough to fit in my backpack. I could easily carry them without being noticed. I could throw them into the river while running through the damn construction site. If I did that, somebody would find them for sure. I've seen on the news several times before that a bag with a body part in it was found beside a river. Every time I hear something like that, I always thought the murderer was stupid. I thought about dumping them in the Onagafuchi swamp, but rotten meat floats. I thought about weighting the bags, but there's no guarantee they'd stay down. So that left me one choice: bury them. There are many unexplored mountains at the end of the abandoned districts around Yagouchi and Taksudo. It's probably best to bury them somewhere in the mountains. While it would be safe to bury them here in the garbage dump too, it's not perfectly safe. And so I'm going to bury all these bags somewhere deep inside of a mountain in order to completely erase the two of them. My joints hurt, so I've been using muscles I don't normally use. Cleaned up the mess very carefully and got into my hideout while still wearing the sweatsuit and laid down on the mattress. I washed my hands carefully, but there was still dirt and blood under the nails. I should take a shower later and wash it off completely. When I say things like disposing of corpses, it sounds like I'm the greatest evil of the century. But that's only true if I get caught. What I did isn't a crime as long as I don't get caught. Plus, I didn't do this because I wanted to commit a crime. I didn't do anything wrong. I did this to protect my father's life and mine. People might speak ill of me, but I don't care about them. In the end, I don't think anyone can really pass judgment on my sins. Sins aren't something to pass judgment on, they're something to confess and atone for. In other words, nobody can measure the weight of a sin other than the person who committed the crime. Do I regret what I did? Do I feel sorry? No. I don't think I did anything wrong. I truly believe there was no better way than killing them. I'm sure it was the right thing because my life had already started to change since the night I killed them. A few days earlier, I just came home after killing Teppy. My father was cleaning the room Teppy had thrashed earlier. His eyes were swollen. He'd been crying.
Rena, どこへ行ってたんだ?
あの男と話をしてきた。もうリナさんは二度とこの家に来ない。だからあなたも来ないでって言った。だからあいつはもう来ないよ。
そんなのでおとなしくしてくれるやつじゃないぞ、きっと。レイナもしばらくは用心した方がいい。
It's hard to explain to him why Teppy would never come back. I can't tell him he shouldn't worry because I killed him. I grabbed ice cubes from the freezer, put them in a plastic bag, and handed it to my father.
はい。ほっぺた、すごい腫れてるよ。
He must have only noticed it just then.
ありがとう。
私が片付けるからいいよ。掃除機持ってくるね。
レイナ。
He called out to
お父さ
me.
んが悪かった。ごめんな。
仕方ないよ。あいつらは騙すのがなりわいだもん。だから、お父さんは騙されただけだよ。
レイナは、あいつらがそういう連中だって知ってたのか？
うん。最近だけどね、言っても信じてくれないと思って言わなかった。ごめんね。
He looked down. When he told me how he wanted to get remarried, I told him that they were bad people and that they scammed others with Badger games. He didn't listen to me. So I was right in saying that he wouldn't have believed me at
お
all.
父さんは母さんとの離婚で落ち込んでいるところをつけ入られたんだよ。
お父さんは、本当にダメなお父さんだよな。
Then he started talking about how he met Rena, of trying to absolve his guilt. It was when he was suffering the most and he needed to drink away his sorrow. At a bar he happened to go into, Rena-san was the one who came to his table. It was her job to be a good listener when her customers talked. Rena must have been a really great listener and offered words of comfort when he talked about the divorce. He was emotionally stable. He'd have taken it as a kindness that she was only offering at the time. He was so desperate that he took it the wrong way. After that, the tragedy was inevitable. He wanted to believe that it was destiny, and he glamorized everything about her. It would be so easy to laugh at him and say he was just dreaming, but I don't blame him, as being weak is also part of being human. He had plenty of opportunities to grow suspicious of her questioning spending habits, questionable, but my father just read even that behavior as an attempt to cheer him up. But everything she asked him to, Rena had landed her catch. He shouldn't have brought his lover to his house where his daughter lived. He was crazy about her and didn't even think about it.
お父さんは、お父さんであることを忘れちゃってたんだ。本当にどうかしてた。
He started crying. I held his shoulders gently.
お父さんがそれに気づいてくれたなら、お父さんはお父さんなんだよ。私には一人しかいない。最後の肉親なんだから。
He couldn't stop moaning. We held each other and cried together. The next day, my father got up early in the morning. He was already cooking breakfast when I got up. He told
お
me,
父さんは今日からしっかりするからな。
でもお父さん、目玉焼きを焼く前にサラダオイルは敷いた方がいいと思うかな。
久しぶりの台所なんで。
he pried off the burning eggs in the pan with a spatula and added salad oil to it. It was too late. Doing that just made it an even bigger mess. But I didn't say anything because I wanted to eat his eggs. I waited at the table quietly. He put the burned eggs on a plate and brought them over to me. It looked like he tried to salvage them by adding cheese, but it didn't really work. Still, it smelled good and crispy, and actually stimulated my appetite. Thick-cut toast popped out of the toaster. I made coffee with extra milk and sugar because my father liked it sweet. We put everything on the table. It looked terrible, like the cooking class of an elementary school, but to me, it was precious because my father tried very hard to make it, wearing the apron.
匂いだけなら美味しそうだよ。あとは味だね。
やっぱり食事はレーナがやった方がいいかもな。これじゃかえって悪い気がする。
お父さんが仕事で忙しくなったら、また私が代わるよ。
It had been a taboo to talk about work in our house. He hadn't worked since the divorce. It wasn't only because of the divorce, though. He just didn't have to work because the settlement my mother gave him was so huge. Plus, I let him be lazy because I felt guilty about the divorce. My father cleared his wrongdoing by showing repentance to me. I also atoned for my sin of not doing anything about my mother, by doing what I did the previous night. Now we are free of sin.
お父さん、仕事を探してみるよ。今日は食案に行ってこようと思う。
それはいいね。
It's not money that he wanted. He just needed a normal
こんな
lifestyle.
年で体力もないからな。いい仕事があるか不安だよ。
どんな仕事ならいいの？
事務の仕事がいいけど、この年じゃなかなか雇ってもらえないだろうな。
私の友達に聞いてみるよ。みーちゃんはこの辺りの大地主のお嬢さんだから、ひょっとすると紹介してくれるかもしれないよ。
いいよいいよ、仕事くらい自分で探すよ。その程度にはしっかりしないとな。
I don't remember the last time we enjoyed breakfast like this. I don't even remember the last time we had breakfast together. For the first time in a long time, the morning light felt refreshing. I wanted to keep enjoying life like this, but unfortunately I had to go to school. I told him that I'd skip school for the day, and that I wanted him to take me someplace fun. But he tried to be a good father and said I had to go to school.
私、学校行くね。
ああ、行ってらっしゃい。
He followed me to the front door. I was a bit embarrassed for some reason. He talked to me while I was tying my shoes. He followed me here not because he wanted to see me off, but because he wanted to tell me
お父さん
something.
は母さんとの離婚の後、ずっと寂しかった。でもお父さんはレイナと一緒だから寂しくなんかないんだ。そうだ、最初から寂しがることなんか何もなかったんだ。
お父さん、それを家族って言うんじゃないかな。
そうだな。そんなことを娘に教わるようじゃダメだな。
じゃあ、ケイチ君を待たせてるから、もう行くね。
行ってらっしゃい。ああ、そうだ、レイナ。今日はお父さんが夕食を作るぞ。食案に行くついでに買い物をしてくる。朝食みたいな失敗はしないから楽しみにしてるんだぞ。
うん、楽しみにしてるよ。行ってきます。
I left the house. My father saw me off, still in the apron. The first step of our new life. I finally regained it. I finally regained everything we lost after we left Hinamizawa. My mother wasn't around, but I didn't feel sad because I had my father. The cries of the cicadas sounded as if they were celebrating my new life. The sunshine was bright. The wind was sending up a nice breeze. The only thing that wasn't nice was the ticking clock. I was late because I spent too much time talking with my father. Keichikun might already be gone. I don't think he'd wait for me that long. He was there anyway.
よう、おはよう。
おはよう。遅れてごめんね。ごめん。
いいってことよ。 普段は俺がレナを待たせてるんだからな。たまには俺を待たさせろ。
ずいぶん遅くなっちゃったね。早足で行った方がいいかな。
そうだな。チャキチャキ行こうぜ。さもないと走る羽目になりそうだ。
みーちゃんさすがに先に行っちゃってるかな。
待ってるだろう絶対。俺たちは仲間だぜ。絶対に見捨てないし、勝手に行っちゃったりはしないよ。それはそうと、今日は朝からいいことでもあったのか？
どうしてかな。
いやさ、今朝のレナは普段にも増して上機嫌そうだったからさ、特別なことでもあったのかなって。
Hi, bud. You want to come in? Come on in. You're going to sleep. The good mood I was in must have been too obvious for Keiichi-kun to ignore. I had not only my family, but my friends too. I felt something warm spreading in my heart. I just wanted to point out that this moment where she realizes she has everything she has, her family back, her friends, what song starts playing? The song that always plays in this game when people find what they're looking for, when they reach that point of, this is what I want. This song always plays.
それがね、聞いて。朝食をお父さんが作ってくれたんだけどね。それがね。
なんだよ、目玉焼きはそれで正しいだろ？サラダオイルってのはサラダに使うもんなんだろ？
みーちゃんたちに教えてあげようっと。
The real question is how long until it all falls apart for her.
それは許しがたい暴言でございましてよ。
おう、上等だぜ。そこまで言うからには直接対決も辞さない覚悟だろうな。
おうおう、盛り上がってるじゃない。なんなら今日の部活さ、さとことけいちゃんで外馬行こうか。
みーちゃん、外馬って何かな。
ああ、外馬ってのはよ、つまり俺とさとこだけで賭けをするってことさ。部活の順位がそのまま勝敗になって、負けた方は俺たちだけのペナルティを課す。
つまりどっちが勝っても負けても僕はとっても楽しいのです。
どうするさとこ。
素敵な勝負でございますことよ。部活にビリで罰ゲームな上に、さらに私に負けてダブルで罰ゲームなんて、こんな素敵なことがございまして。
よしさとこ、よく受けたね。よっしゃ、今日の部活は2人の外馬付きでやろ
う。部活の種目より罰ゲームを何にするか考える方が楽しいのですよ。
確かに楽しいよな。さとこがどんな悲惨な目に遭うか今から想像できちまうぜ。
それはケイチさんのことでございましてよ。ブニーやりましたわね。
う。ほらほら、2人とも勝負はまだ始まってないって。
Chie-sensei opened the door and came
皆さんお
in.
待たせしました。それでは帰りのホームルームを始めますよ。
Everybody headed to their seats.
みーちゃん。
何？
ケイチくんとさとこちゃんがとても盛り上がっているところで申し訳ないんだけど、ごめんね。ちょっと今日も用事があってすぐ帰らないといけないの。
そうなの？もう用事じゃ仕方ないな。お家の仕事？
うん。
家事ってんじゃおじさんは口出しできないな。うちはお手伝いさんに全部任せっきりだからね。
たまにはみーちゃんも家事手伝いとかすればいいのに。きっと花嫁修行になるよ。
ご安心を。万事その手のスキルに関してはつつがなく習得済みですので。
Michan looks like the kind of girl who tries to stay away from chores as much as possible. She can actually do everything. That's just who she is. She went through hard times to learn those things, but she acts like she learned them without any struggle. That's also who she is. I like that about her.
帰っちゃうのかよ。
あら、圭一さんが恥ずかしい格好で職員室にお伺いしなくちゃならないところをご覧になりませんの？見物なのに残念なのです。
You went out already? What did you even come in here? You sat here for like 2 minutes. Okay, out you go. Yes, Doggo came and Doggo left. What is it time for, Sam? This is...
昨日も家の用事だったじゃねえかよ。何かあったのか？
Your bedtime?
ちょっとね、いろいろ。
Ah, yes, the time to use the sleeps. I figured.
もう何日かかかるかもしれない。
Alright, well, take care, Sam. Says have a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend if I don't talk to you.
じゃあ当分レナは部活に参加できないかな。
かもしれない。なるべく早く復帰できるように頑張る。
その用事は俺たちには手伝えることか？
Hopefully many more PRs in the future. Yeah, by all means. I mean, I've also seen people that do PRs for like literally their own private projects, or they'll branch, they'll do a PR because it forces them to review their code properly, and it's just a good practice.
例えば古い家具を運び出すとか。
That being said, I've just been pushing everything in my own personal stuff straight to master, but shh.
応援に行くぜ。
家の模様替えとかかい？おじさんたちみんなで手伝うよ。
レナさんの家のお手伝いで優劣起きそうのもありですわよね。多分お手伝いしない方が優勝なのです。みんなありがとう。気持ちだけもらっておくね。
じゃあ仕方ない。竜宮レナを本日付で
Yeah, PRs are both useful figuring out that, but also like if you join a new project and trying to figure out like how people commit code and like how the project is structured, looking through old PRs is a fantastic way. It also helps if you're trying to work on a feature and someone's like, I don't know, we worked on this 2 years ago. I usually try and find that PR from 2 years ago and see what they did. It's much easier to see that code in isolation in little chunks than it is to try and look through the whole code base usually.
お家の仕事が片付くまで休暇とするので、英気回復の上、再び戦線へ復帰することをここに命ずる。まあ4人なら4人で遊べるゲームもあるしね。そうだそうだ、ケイちゃんは麻雀とかできる？
おう、任せろ。親父の仕事関係の人たちの卓に無理やり混ぜられることもある。
もちろん私たちは麻雀で活躍していましたよ。
After that, they fooled around and made a lot of noise, just like they always did. I looked at them and reminded myself that I'd have a place to return to. I left the classroom with a smile. I was going to go to Yaguchi on my bike. I had to find a place to bury the bags with the body parts. Hopefully I could finish burying all of them today before it gets dark. With that, everything would be over and done with.
パイの背中が竹だってのがなんだか怖いよな。まさかガンパイってことはないだろうな。
さて、どうでございましょうね。圭一さんには以前のジジ抜きの時に手痛い思い出がございますものね。
まあ多少は傷もあるだろうね。安物のパイだしさ。そのくらいの要素がないと我が部らしくないでしょ。ヒヒヒヒヒ。
みー、赤は何枚混ぜるのですか？ 6 つ？
Riki-chan sounded professional and it scared me. Oh well. I should start by checking the tiles. Playing mahjong with my family is different from playing it as a club activity. I have to be cautious. Possible that one tile is missing or that there's an extra pair of a particular tile in here.
そんなことしないって。でも着想は面白いね。そういう手もあるか。なるほどなるほど。
よしよし、パイをみんな表にして並べてみよう。ほれほれほれ。
Everybody flip the tiles face up.
あれ、おい、誰かのとこにチュンが1個隠れてないか？
ピンズとソーズの6が1個ずつ足りないですわね。あら、マンズの6も1個足りませんでしたよ。
なんだなんだ？随分と足りないじゃないか。
ああ、そうだったそうだった。ちょいと待って。
Mion hit the palm of her head with her fist, moved her chair aside, and stuck her fingers into the gap in the floorboards. Then she pulled a tile out of there.
はいよ、まずはチュンね。あとの3つはどこだったっけな。
おい待てミオ、どうして麻雀のパイが教室のあちこちに隠してあるんだよ。
にゃはははは。まあまあ。
She must have hidden the other tiles somewhere in the classroom and forgot where. We couldn't play mahjong with 3 tiles missing. I suggested playing another game, but Mion insisted that we had to find them, and suggested making that treasure hunt our game.
まあ確かに圭一さんと勝負をつけるなら種目は何でもいいわけでございますけど、もうちょっとまともな種目がいいですわね。
同感だな。それにこの教室に本当にあるかも怪しいんだろ。
多分あると思うんだよ。あるいはおじさんが懐にしまったまま帰っちゃって洗濯機の脇に置いてあるとかかな。
I recommend checking the total number of tiles after we play mahjong with Mion next time. Everybody except Mion nodded in agreement.
何よ、教室宝探し対決じゃ不満？
つうかミオンのイカ様の後始末だろ。お前の責任でやれ。部活を私的に使うな。
ブーブー。じゃあどうする？麻雀は無理だしね。他何する？である人。
As our club president, Mion usually decides what we'll play. I couldn't just come up with something on the spot. While we were all thinking, Mion hit her palm with her fist just like she did earlier.
じゃあさみんな、パイの宝探しが嫌ならさ、もうちょっとでっかく宝探しをしようじゃない？宝探しといえばレナのお家芸。
ってことはダム現場のゴミ山か。
あそこってあんまり行ったことないんですけど、結構広いですわよね。あそこはバラバラ殺人の幽霊が出るから近寄らない方がいいらしいのですよ。
幽霊上等じゃないの。そのくらいの演出つかないと宝の山としてはインパクト弱いよね。
へえ、そんな噂あるのかよ。確か主犯が未だ逃走中。そいつの隠した腕一本が未だ見つからないとか言うんだろ。
その腕を探して監督さんが幽霊になってさまよっているという噂があるのです。あらあらリカ、幽霊が嫌いなんですの？いいお年にもなって恥ずかしいですわね。僕は巫女ですから見たくなくても見えてしまうのですよ。
うわ、なんだよそれ、霊感ってやつか？確かに見える人には当たり前のように幽霊が見えるって話聞いたことあるな。
バカバカしいですわね。リカと一緒にずっと住んでますけど、そんなの一度も見たことありませんでしたよ。さとこに見えてないだけなのですよ。
This is the exact same music that played when we were talking with Rena just before she attacked us.
寝てるときはいつもミパーリカ、そこで笑ってはぐらかさないでくださいま。私が寝てるときは何なんですの？
Sadako, I feel sorry for you. You can pretend you're not scared of ghosts during the day. I'm pretty sure you get scared when it gets dark. You have to make a silent phone call tonight just to scare the hell out of you.
まあ私も含めてなんだけど、ダム戦争の後に好き好んであそこに出入りする人はいないんじゃないかね。レナくらいだよ、楽しそうにあそこで遊んでるのは。
レナのカーイモードの前に幽霊が出た日にゃ、彼岸の向こうからでもお持ち帰りされかねんな。
確かにありそうですわね。はう、お持ち帰りって。
It was so easy to imagine that all of us laughed.
じゃあ決まり。今日はゴミ山探検にしよう。幽霊を見つけられたら優勝。辞典は隠された右腕。その次はじゃあレナが気に入りそうな何かだね。レナに見せて白黒をつけてもらうってことでどうよ。
私は優勝でケイチさんはビリでダブル罰ゲームが楽しみですわね。
おいおい、サトコいいのかよ。優勝ってことは幽霊。
ちょっとやめてくださいませ。暑苦しいですわ。僕もお化けが怖いので行きたくないのです。もとは何ですの？もとは私は全然怖くなんかありませんわよ。ゲイチさん、お話遊ばせ。
では行くよ諸君、出撃準備。
It'll be over with. Everything will be over and done with. Yes, it'll be over when the Higurashi cry. What is this weird Oh, okay.
全部かな。
So, we as a class all went here, caught Rena, I guess with the body parts, and so we're now caught up with where we were when we first started the game. We're all in the trash dump. And that feels like an appropriate place. Wow, I just changed the background music. How the heck did I do that? Yeah, that feels like an appropriate place for us to end for today.